Sweet. We are actually live now. I just tried to go live previously and it was not working. So, however, this is saying it's categorized as gaming, which is definitely not gaming. Here we go. Let's see. Sports, science, technology, news and politics, film and animation, education. Yeah, this is kind of educational, maybe entertainment. Yeah, I mean, not financial advice, only entertainment. So recategorize this as entertainment. Alrighty. Perfect. So today we're going to continue our deep dive of Shift4. Grab a drink. I got some lemon water here. We're going to continue where we left off yesterday and watching Shift4's Investor Day. I rearranged the screen so you guys can see me taking notes, kind of follow along with what I'm thinking as I'm watching this. And then I also bumped it up to 1.5x speed. I think that's going to be helpful. I mean, if you're watching this back later, it might be a little bit, let's mute that, annoying. Please help me Shift4 joining work. Hi Lippy. Help me Shift4 shop joining work. You talking about their unified commerce platform, or but yes, hello Bangladesh. Very cool. We're happy to have you in the stream. So anyways, got sidetracked there a little bit. We are going to continue our deep dive. This was kind of my notes from the first hour of the Investor Day. I shared them at the end of the live stream yesterday. So after we're done today, if you want to kind of know how I got to where I'm at so far, and I'm following my standard operating procedure of how I deep dive stocks. So I'll go back over that methodology real quick first, actually. So let me pull that over. We're just going to throw that in here. Okay, so this is my standard operating procedure for how I deep dive stocks. Some definitions, the goal. I won't read all through this again because I read through all of this at the beginning of yesterday's stream. There's generating ideas, prioritizing ideas. We've already done that. So we're in the deep dive. Yesterday's stream, we read the Yahoo Finance kind of summary of Shift4, what they do, what their products are. It was very, very insightful. I had a hard time finding the Investor Day at first. I started actually watching Q4 earnings recall. Okay, this is starting to get annoying. That's my text-to-speech. So we started watching, we listened to, I think, Q4 2024 earnings call from Shift4, and there they had the link to this Investor Day. So we're on step 13, watch the Investor Day of the company, if any. So we're going to continue with that, and I'm going to continue taking notes so you guys can follow along. I hope you guys enjoy. The idea of these live streams is that you can see how someone goes about, a retail investor goes about really deep diving and understanding a company at a fundamental level, and then how I decide whether or not I want to invest in a company. So hopefully in today's stream, after we're finished with this Investor Day, we're going to listen to one more earnings call. We're going to look at a lot of the metrics for the company balance sheet over the last couple of quarters, the income statement, and then we're going to actually run some projections and where we think the stock price is going to go over time. So yeah, stick with me today. It's going to be an interesting stream. If you can't watch the whole stream, these are going to be live on the channel, so you can check them out later. And then I'll probably do some kind of summary for Shift4 after I finish my deep dive, and that will probably be more like a 10-20 minute video just summarizing the ideas. So you can join for however much of the stream you can, and then subscribe, and then watch out for that video coming out in the future. So we're going to go ahead and hit play here and actually dive in, and I'll just continue taking notes. If there's something I want to talk about, I'll pause it, and again, we're just this is supposed to be an environment where we can all learn about investing in companies together and have a discussion. If you guys have any questions, throw them in the chat. So here we go.
At the ticketing CRM. All right, roadmap here. Again, top item is a top item. Right? We are expanding focus within SkyTab Venue, Canada, and Europe.
see if we can get this
leveraging the same rails and same capabilities. SkyTab is a little head, SkyTab point of sale is a little head of SkyTab Venue from an international perspective. So what we've already learned, what we've already been doing, all the capabilities that SkyTab has fully translates to SkyTab Venue to again, shortcut how we go from start to finish, and we eliminate the problems and the potholes along the way. Fan insights. So this is really interesting because, just in what we described, SkyTab Venue is the definitive.
If you guys didn't see yesterday's live stream, what he's talking about here is their main product, which is called SkyTab. SkyTab's pretty much for restaurants, allows them to run payments, do tip distribution, take contactless payments, order pay at the table type things for restaurants and hospitality, so hotels, ski resorts, that kind of stuff. SkyTab Venue is their version of the SkyTab product, specifically for stadiums and that kind of stuff. So he's just outlaying the roadmap for that product here.
Definitive source of sports entertainment data. Right, the largest distribution, number one in the world. Think about the data that comes through. Now, if you think also about the individual operators and how they're leveraging ticketing and setting up all these different rewards and packages and cash offers, what if you could pull it all together and make prescriptive insights of what works and maybe what doesn't work? Right, this is the power of unified data, being able to apply it with a lot of AI on top of it to provide prescriptive direction for, we recommend you make this season ticket offer, this multi-game offer, this bundled offer. And we know this because across the network or within an individual venue, we're seeing what's working, what's not working, and how to optimize. We're mutually aligned here. We want to make sure that however they're positioning is.
So this is actually really interesting. What he's talking about here is actually a network effect, where they're able to get data from businesses, and then they use that data from the business to continue to improve the product, not only for the customer they got the insights from, but for all of the other customers as well. So, this is exactly why Facebook is a massive, massive company. Facebook's product is actually pretty limited. What most people interact with on Facebook isn't actually the work of Facebook themselves. So most of the content on Facebook is UGC, user-generated content. And the reason why the user-generated content is so good is because everybody's there, and everybody's there because all of the best user-generated content is there. So it becomes this flywheel, and that's called the network effect, where you get all the users because you have the most users, and you have the most users producing the best content, so you have more users joining the platform, and then it kind of makes this vicious positive cycle. And so they're kind of using this, insight growth to expand their offerings for businesses that they are partnered with. So, and then they talked about the same kind of stuff for restaurants as well, giving restaurants insights. They're currently the number 2 payment provider for restaurants. They're working really hard to become number 1 payment provider. And so, if they are able to continue to expand these insights that they're able to give these businesses, you could get this super, super good flywheel for this business where they continue to get more customers, they get more data from those customers, they give their customers better insights, and so those customers succeed more, they make more money, they make more profit, and because of that, more customers come to the platform, and you get this flywheel where it just takes off. So I love to hear that they are implementing these things. This could really continue to grow this company well into the future.
Is enhancing their fan experience because it makes our application that much more valuable. And then the entertainment district insights, right? If you take it outside the stadium, we just saw the Chick-fil-A example, you move it from just the 4 walls into an entertainment district, it becomes that much more valuable. And then finally, Wallet. And again, Wallet from the demo is the center of the fan experience. So making sure that we're continually investing. This is not a one-time investment. This is a forever investment. Right now, in the current quarter or 2 ahead, we're really focusing on segmentation, push marketing. We got targeted offers, behavior rewards, and I think where it all comes together is geofence type offers. Not only are you able to push to a specific device or a specific user, when a specific user comes into a geofence, things fire. That drives an enormous amount of flexibility, enormous amount of efficiency, and it's the next generation of SkyTab Venue.
Shift4 has collaborated with some of the most technologically advanced companies to design the ultimate unified commerce payment platform. We started with one of the most demanding businesses in the world, or above it. And now, we're expanding to support some of the biggest names in online payments.
This business has truly unique e-commerce challenge. We run the gamut from really high demand on sale for things like Icon Pass to really slow, complex, heart-building e-commerce of the most sophisticated vacations that you could book. Multiple people, multiple sizes, across multiple days and activities and categories.
We're a passenger airline. We serve just about 550 nonstop routes, primarily routes that aren't served by other carriers. They've taken a lot of time to really get to know our business, how it operates, how our website operates, what is the behavior of our customers, and they've kind of taken all of that into consideration as they've structured their product. So Shift4 has been a partner that we can rely on just in their ability to adapt and be flexible to meet our needs.
But we're not just online. With decades of experience powering enterprise card-present businesses, we're uniquely positioned to deliver a truly unified commerce solution, connecting the physical and digital worlds. With a single integration and simple implementation, we enable e-commerce and omni-channel businesses to unlock customers across the globe. From our merchant of record solution and cross-border capabilities to seamless pay-ins and payouts, businesses can easily accept over 100 payment methods and 160 different currencies. We guard every transaction with the latest security tech, tokenization, and cutting-edge fraud protection tools powered by AI and machine learning, serving mature markets as well as unique geographies around the world. Here's where we are, and here's where we're going. That's right, there's a new player on the global stage, and we're shaking up the entire unified commerce landscape. One platform, one integration, one global solution. That's how you shift forward.
Let me tell you about our rocket. This is really.
Yeah, definitely don't, underappreciate the fact that they are able to offer all of these things on one platform. Like, that is a huge, huge advantage they have over the competition. These businesses have so many needs. They need to do payroll. They need to accept payments. They need to distribute, payroll. They need to do scheduling of shifts. And a lot of these times, these restaurants, these stadiums, these hotels, they're using multiple different platforms to do these kind of tasks. And so Shift4 is coming in here and saying we can be the all-in-one solution. And so this is kind of what Google does. So like you have Slack come out, Google comes out with Google Chat. You have Zoom come out, you have Google Meet come out. And so where there's this huge disjointed market with these bunch of independent companies that all have one offering, you have Google on the other side that's just able to offer you a whole suite of products that are maybe only like 80% as good as the competition. But because it's just this all-in-one, there's this huge pricing advantage, and there's this kind of efficiency gain that you get from having all of these, kind of software solutions in one place through one subscription. So even if Shift4, some of these offerings aren't as good as their independent competition, just the fact that you can bundle all of these things together gives Shift4 like a huge advantage over the competition. So I love to hear that they're, continuing to build out this all-in-one platform offering they have for restaurants, hotels, ski resorts, all that kind of stuff.
A couple of core philosophies coming together to get us to where we are today. Philosophy one was customer-focused development, and philosophy two, working with a very challenging merchant to get us to the next level of feature functionality and way of thinking about a product or even an industry. That's what's happened here. We've partnered with a very technologically advanced strategic customer and followed them all over the world. They were working with companies like Adyen and dLocal. So from a feature functionality perspective, they already had like best-in-class designs, right? They already had an understanding about how everything had to work, and we had to match that. But then we also had to show value. So we can't just like go also ran. If we're going to be best in class, we've got to be best in class. So we understand, right, those particular competitors, what they do well, what they don't do so well. Matching that's one thing. Then engaging with the business and saying, well, where are the really challenging problems that you're unable to solve, right? Certainly not Adyen and dLocal are solving every single thing. And we found that one of the most challenging things they had are going into what I call exotic areas, exotic regions, countries that, in some cases, that would challenge you to find these on a map. So we said, that's an interesting challenge, right? We love interesting challenges. Let's go. And that's kind of how we got here today. We've engaged, we've built a product platform. The product platform is, everything that you need to run the business as evidenced by this particular relationship, right? Pay in, pay out, local to local, cross-border, pay fax, merchant of record, intelligent reporting, fraud tools, everything within a single product that you need to run a global scaled business. We built that, we delivered that. And then being able to go from where we are today to where our strategic merchant means that we're launching a new country, brand new countries almost weekly, right? So the effort, the mindset, the focus to be able to do this has been unmatched. What you see here is really important from the overall value proposition and how we would talk about this to any new merchant that we want to bring onto the platform, right, across the top. One platform, one integration, global reach. Now we think about the feature functionality, what sets us apart. Again, we'll talk a little bit more in a second about unique geographic coverage and fast expansion. That's table stakes for us at this point, right? We know how to do that. It's incredibly challenging. It keeps us moving every single day. But again, we have this team in place. The smartest and the best technologists and business leaders, product leaders, in my opinion, on the planet are working on this mission. Developer first toolkit. So the platform was built from the ground up with developers in mind. And it's really important because if you take a look at some competitive opportunities, to be able to go from hello to fully boarded and transacting is an incredible journey, right?
That's good to know. So there's Jacob. You guys should all know Jacob. He's been the face of the channel for since inception. He's just mentioning that the secret customer they're talking about here is SpaceX. And that's actually another interesting about the stock as well. They actually own quite a bit of SpaceX stock on their balance sheet. So when you own Shift4 stock, you actually own some percentage of that is actually in SpaceX. So you get to own SpaceX indirectly if you own Shift4 stock, which is kind of cool. But yeah, their customer being SpaceX also just demonstrates like how wide of range of customers they have.
You got to talk to all these different people. You got to maybe hire consultants. We want to take one piece of code, drop it into a website, enable commerce, and go. And we deliver that, right? Best-in-class capabilities, and again, we're mutually aligned because the faster we can get you to transact, the better off we are. So we want to make sure we take every piece of friction and take away the parts. Unified dashboard. So like our other verticals, right? Where does the power come from? It comes from, let's say, I don't know, let's make something up. 25 different countries, 25 different currencies, local payment methods, one dashboard, bring it all together. What were my sales yesterday? Well, sales were $1 million. What does that mean? Click into it and you find out, right? The lens of the business coming through a single consolidated portal, incredibly valuable. That's just top-line sales. Now let's drive into chargebacks, right? Let's go into fraud management. All the best-in-class capabilities that you need, and then bring to the next level where you've got paid in, paid out, and then things like subscriptions, recurring plans, payment plans, local to local, cross-border. All these different nuances, capabilities are in the platform today and are being expanded around the globe at an exponential rate. This is where we are now. Bottom line is where we're going. I saw this just as we started the presentation. I think we made a mistake. That's again, we are doing like a country a week. The backlog's far too small, but it's an incredible pace, and we continue to press and press to saturate the globe. And the flywheel effect, any place where these countries are launching, any other like merchant can follow. But it's not just countries, right? In order to transact in a country, you also need whatever payment methods are local. Our brand proposition is whatever we need in a particular country or geography, we're going to enable that. We want to make that easy for our merchant and our merchant's customer, right, to transact the way they want to.
This is yet another flywheel that Shift4 has. I mentioned this yesterday on yesterday's stream. They acquire a new customer. A new customer has unique requirements, maybe a new currency, new payment method that they need to accept, a new integration into the platform that they need to have opened. Shift4 adds those things, and then they expand the number of offerings they have, and those new offerings attract new customers. And then those new customers have new unique issues that need to be solved. And then you have that flywheel, that customer acquisition flywheel as well, where you just get this platform that's continually expanding, adding new features, adding new currencies, adding new payment methods, and you just get this super robust product for your customers, and that acquires new customers. So that's another excellent flywheel.
And then our consolidated business portal. Already mentioned this, but a comprehensive view. Accounts across regions, transactions, individual customers, right? If you are a customer and you're buying a certain product, you're in that particular CRM database, we can click in, we can look at every transaction. If you want a recurring payment plan, all that's available. If one transaction fails, right, alert, understand, dive in, and figure out how to fix that particular problem. Operational controls, right? There's a financial aspect, there's an operational aspect of e-commerce. Card fingerprints, blacklist, fraud rules, events and logging, making sure that we're understanding exactly how we're tracking. The fraud, if you work in the e-commerce space, is no joke, right? You got to keep your eye on it every single day. It can get out of control before you know it. We have to provide the tools, functionality, and capabilities we have to manage it, and also our merchant has to be able to proactively be notified if they think a problem's going on, and then to proactively correct it through different rules, or rely on an AI engine to correct it automatically in the background. And then from a business functionality, flexibility perspective, right, payouts, payment plans, all of this, all in a single platform available today. Now, this is something I want to show you here around a merchant experience. And the use case is I'm a business transacting with Unified Commerce, Shift4 Unified Commerce, and I'm currently doing business in the US. I'm here, right? Maybe I'm in Las Vegas. I come into the portal and I have a vision like maybe I want to expand to, let's say, Brazil, right? How hard would that be for an average merchant to go from, oh, look, this is cool, let's be in Brazil, to transact in Brazil? Let's have a look. One merchant account, this is the US, you see on the account name, you click, there's our map, green's where we are, blue's where we can go. Let's click on Brazil. Look, the different currency types, payment methods, card support. We'll go ahead and enable it. Account details, currency conversions, different configurations of how you might want to handle local, or cross-border. All the different account details.
What they're demonstrating here is also super, super important, which is the company's ability to scale with their customers. So, you get these massive international companies like, Jake mentioned SpaceX. SpaceX is constantly offering Starlink in new markets. So if they need a payment provider, they can work with multiple different payment providers, but that's more management, that's more overhead for SpaceX because they're going to have to deal with multiple platforms, multiple subscriptions to these platforms, however the payment model works for Shift4. Whereas if you just have one payment provider that can literally do any market, any country that you want to expand into, like that's a huge value add if you have plans to expand to new countries in the future. If you have two options, one's just in the US, one's in the US plus a bunch of other countries, you're going to want to select the company that has other markets, especially if you have the ambition to expand into those markets yourself.
Live. right? Everything around account provisioning, underwriting, all happening in the background. We already know this merchant. We're able to underwrite and move it forward very quickly. Transacting from their website, we're looking at a currency in Brazil called PIX. Super easy to engage with a PIX transaction out of the box. And then flow straight through to your dashboard, the overall volume, paid in, paid outs. This is the pace of the business, right? This is what really matters, to be able to track sales, understand what's happening, individual transactions, and then roll it up to the overall balances and a payout. It really is that easy. We designed it from the ground up, right? We talked about merchant experience. I gave you some examples with launch control. The same principles that we use in launch control, right, with affinity, retention, frictionless, taking out parts, are applied here. Totally different domain, but the mindset of thinking and making it as easy as possible to expand and transact, all in the same philosophy, and fully offered through the product platform itself, right? You don't have to call sales. You don't have to like go online and do some stuff. Go into the product, discover, click, and enable. All right, and then just a couple of words about where we're tracking. So as I already mentioned, more countries, local payment methods, right? Crypto acceptance is also coming to unified commerce, and then along with acceptance, we'll have a crypto settlement and stablecoin settlement. Platform optimizations. This is some really interesting sort of low-level detail, but really, really important. Something called AI auth rate optimization. Right? If you're seeing trends towards declines or downgrades, let the AI engines fix them for you. Be proactive, right? We shouldn't see, end of the month or even end of the day that we have to go and like analyze a bunch of transactions that weren't in process as we expected. Let a robot, let an engine do that for you. We're building that into the framework of the platform now. And then along with that, from a reporting perspective, right, we think that we have report builders and we have lots of available reports. But an AI report builder is really important to us. Let's build reports through just simple common language, right? You understand you want net sales for Brazil, right, on a particular date, week, or month. Just type it in, hit go, and then AI take that language and translate it into the actual code that creates that report. And within seconds, that code that is available for you. You can run it one time. You can put it on a subscription. Again, removing friction, making it super easy to run your business, manage. Incredible amount of progress has been made on this platform in a very, very little time. As I said, it's a rocket. We're super bullish. We love this space. There's just an amazing amount of new capabilities and opportunities for us over the horizon, and we're super excited to see where we're going to be in a very short period of time following this roadmap and direction. All right, let me end where I started. It's a great time to be a product leader at Shift4. Right? These guys, Jared, Taylor, have us positioned so well. We've got amazing talent. We're working with some of the best merchants on the planet. They keep us on our toes. We're building capabilities that are available for every merchant, creating a dynamic flywheel across every vertical that we serve. I believe there is no limit to what we can achieve. And then actually, I'll say this not from Shift4, but for myself. If we fail, it's our own fault. There's nothing standing in our way. There's nothing obstructing us. Nothing can happen to us. We just need to execute, right? Put autonomy, put accountability in place, follow the script, and we're going to have amazing results in a very short period of time. We're going to go on a 15-minute break. I think we have some refreshments. And again, out that door, straight across the hall, SkyTab demo room. If you haven't been there, please go have a look.
You're getting a sense for not just the breadth of products and the verticals that you've grown to know us in and love us in, but also a lot of where our energy is spent behind the scenes. I think that Brazilian enablement and PIX transaction that
Again, guys, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat.
that Dave walked you all through, hopefully was a little bit of an eye-opener, because we don't talk about that very much. And hopefully the country list was a little bit of an eye-opener as well. We're always doing a ton behind the scenes. And every little inch we advance the product gives us much more confidence to go serve more and more merchants. So if you're scratching your head about why we're so excited to have a foot in the door at tens of thousands of the largest retailers in the world, which is the Global Blue transaction I'm going to be talking about in a little bit, hopefully that product's capability matrix that we just walked you through gives you a sense as to why we're so excited about kind of embarking in these new geographies with these new capabilities, with these new merchants and new verticals. But I think most important is for you all to understand how we get this done, both from a talent perspective and an organizational perspective. I think one thing we get fairly criticized for is how much we're trying to accomplish at the same time. And so you're going to hear from Kim Rogers, who's our Chief Human Resources Officer, and Josh McCall, who's our Chief Business Operations Officer, about how we get all this done. Thanks.
Hey everyone, as Taylor said, my name is Kim Rogers. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer here at Shift4. I've been with the company for about 6 months now, and it's been an incredible journey so far. And I hope you can also see the incredible journey that we're on, right? We've got talented and passionate leaders, really incredible product set, growing globally, and tons of opportunities for development and growth. So I'm excited today to kick us off and talk a little bit about what that looks like. So just one slide here to kind of cover it all. So I want to walk us through how do we get people in the door at Shift4? How do we approach development and growth once people are in the door? And then what does it mean to kind of stay with Shift4 and grow from there? And how does it all connect to how we deliver results ultimately for the organization? But the one thing I want to call out to start is, at its core, our talent strategy is highly connected to our acquisition strategy. So, Luke, Thomas, who you'll hear from a little bit later in the team, bring in companies who are kind of naturally aligned to the work that we do, understand our industry, understand our products, and that makes it a lot easier. When folks come in the door, we don't have to spend so much time educating about our industry. We don't have to spend as much time, externally recruiting to bring talent in, because we naturally have this opportunity to bring great people in right away. And in fact, greater than half of our workforce, so majority of our workforce right now, came in through an acquisition at one point or another in Shift4's history. So we are highly, highly supported by our talent that came in through our acquisitions. The other part I want to say on that is not to say we do not kind of supplement bringing in great talent to fill gaps externally, but it absolutely is a core part of our talent strategy to bring in folks through acquisition. And what that means is, instead of spending all of that time externally from a recruiting perspective, we instead can spend much more time onboarding and getting all of these companies who are coming from different cultures and different mindsets into our Shift4 way. And so you heard kind of all of our leaders so far talk about how important that Shift4 way is for how we work as an organization. And so it is extremely critical to us that as part of our integration efforts, when we're bringing people in the door, we focus so much on that so that we can hit the ground running very, very quickly to ultimately meet our deal objectives, which is really important to us. And then once folks get in the door, there are naturally a lot of opportunities for development. So you heard a lot about our growth story.
Do not underestimate how important the employees are to a company. You know, you need to work on acquiring employees, like good employees, just as hard as you like work on acquiring customers. Because like you could see here, I mean, your employees are building your products, they're working with your customers. So if you're not having top talent at your company, like you can definitely suffer from that. Your customers are going to suffer, your product's not going to be as good. So, and their ability to continue to increase the efficiency per employee is also a really good metric. That's going to drive margins up. So that's a good tailwind to have on margins, is just continually increase the efficiency per employee. So, yeah.
And I think about it in this way, right? There is absolutely stretch opportunities just by doing your job, right? No matter what, right? We are growing every single day. And so our talent is naturally stretching and growing as a part of that. But in addition, we put people into roles, we promote from within, and in fact fill a vast majority of our positions through internal talent. And that is a big part of our growth story, and bringing folks along the journey is extremely important to how we operate. We also have a ton of opportunities for global growth, of course. In 2023, we were about 18% of our employees were located outside the US. And just at the end of the year in 2024, that number is 45% outside the US. And so that also naturally brings a lot of development opportunities for our teammates. The other thing we focus on here is we have a high performance management culture. So we are in the process of putting productivity measurements in place for all of our roles across our organization, so our people know where they stand and how they're producing for the company. We have tailored success measurements for our positions so that when we go through our performance cycles, people know where they stand at any given time. And we also know that as part of our growth strategy from a people perspective, we have to be really thoughtful about how we review our organization on a regular basis to make sure that we have the right resources in the right roles kind of all the time. And it is part of doing business for us. And it's really important to maintaining that high performance differentiated culture. And I think as a result, people like to be here, right? We have low turnover, really high engagement scores, and essentially people are able to grow and develop, I think highly at Shift4, and hopefully get the chance to talk to some of our colleagues tonight. But I think also another reason why people tend to stay with us is we really mean it when we talk about a pay for performance culture. We reward outperformance, right? We put really stretch goals in front of people. We talked a little bit about that scrappy team kind of mindset, but we put people against really kind of seemingly impossible things, and when they outperform those, and you've seen that we've been able to do that, we reward them for it, and we're not afraid of that. We're excited to do it, and I think folks understand that if they work hard and kind of drive the business forward, we will absolutely incentivize against that, and it's kind of a core part of our.
I love this. I love hearing this. I'm just thinking of like Twitter's work culture where like they have chefs making food for them every day. If you want to work from home, that's fine. No type of tracking of, how many lines of code you're working per day, like writing per day. I mean, that's just such an inefficient work culture where you just get this super, super bloated workforce. There's no incentive to be working hard. Everybody, you have one employee that's slacking. Everyone else is like, why am I going to work hard if that employee's slacking and we all get paid the same amount? So don't underestimate like how important a work culture that actually rewards based on merit what that does for the company. So I'm liking everything I'm hearing here.
Our retention strategy. And then finally, this piece about extreme ownership and accountability, I think, is really exciting. So we set a goal for ourselves. I'll just give one example. We set a goal for ourselves at the end of 2024, where we said, gosh, we should be able to use our employees for our installations, and we specifically said for SkyTab Venue. And we said, wouldn't it be great if we could have 100% of our new SkyTab Venue installs to be completed by our internal employees? Obviously reducing some costs there, but also aligning our teammates to our merchants, getting folks more aligned and having more pride behind our mission and the work that we do. And we met that goal in January. So now 100% of our new SkyTab Venue installs are being handled by and being installed by our in-house employees, which is really cool, right? We've been able to reduce some costs and again, align our teammates against our mission and drive that forward. And so all of these things, right? Bringing in talent from acquisitions, developing and really taking that targeted approach towards that, making sure that we have a performance management culture that really drives that, rewarding exceptional performance when people are outperforming, and making sure we drive that extreme ownership, I think really is part of the click down of the formula behind the Shift4 way that drives us forward as an organization. And you can see, as a result, we've really shown that we're a highly productive workforce, right? Despite having grown our headcount, we try to stay mostly flat, excluding acquisitions. And
I'd love to hear what their revenue per employee is. That's a really interesting metric to compare across companies, is what their revenue per employee. I'm going to double check my audio real quick. Metric to compare. Yeah, okay, sounds good. All right, keep going.
Have been able to show that productivity gains since 2018, but also we're projecting that will continue on that path in 2025 and beyond. So I think a lot of opportunities here at Shift4, and excited to have pass it over to my colleague Josh McCall, who will kind of take it a click deeper and take you into some actual work that we do here.
Just before you get started, I want to kind of emphasize how we think about productivity across the organization. This chart down at the bottom is literally just how we know that we're headed in the right direction on the compass, right? M&A has been an amazing way for us to grow our capability set, grow our access to customers, et cetera. But if you're not doing it well, you are adding employees faster than you're adding productivity, and your revenue generation and your profitability per employee drops. And so, the singular focus for us in making sure we're on the right course is literally this chart down below. It's one thing to say you've grown an organization because you've grown employees 3, 4, 5x over the course of a really short period of time. But if productivity per employee is not growing, you're going in the completely wrong direction. So you'll see this as we think about human capital management. This is the starting point. Where do we think productivity per employee is going to go? And how do we make sure it's trending in a positive direction, regardless of how fast our headcount's growing? Our headcount is growing extremely fast. So we're happy to report we think it's going to continue to grow meaningfully, 20 to 40% per employee over the course of the next year. And Nancy can double click a little bit on some of the things that Kim mentioned with regard to just how our expense base and our headcount grows without M&A, because it really doesn't grow very much despite all the capabilities we've been adding. And Josh and his team are a core part of kind of making sure we're constantly pointed in the right direction. So.
Hi guys, how you doing? Josh McCall, I'm the Chief Business Operations Officer here at Shift4. As Taylor mentioned, we have the program management team that sits underneath this organization. We're all about getting things done on time, so I can help and notice we were like 20 minutes ahead of schedule, so I'm going to turn my 5-minute time slot into like 25 minutes, I think, just to slow us down and get us done on time. That's wax poetic about program management. But just a quick intro and a bit about my background. So I joined the Shift4 team in 2021. Spent the first 13 years of my career at Lockheed Martin. Had the pleasure of working with a bunch of our allies in the UK and Australia to build out flight training programs across the world with Lockheed. Worked on a bunch of cool technologies and products there. Worked on radar systems, weapon systems, programs for the US Army and Navy. Had a ton of fun, but ultimately wanted to make a change. Came to Shift4 and found awesome change back in 2021. So, as you guys heard, you may be wondering how this organization juggles all the priorities we have going on. You've heard about a ton of the product priorities, a ton of the M&A priorities, maintain focus, execute with urgency on this stuff. It doesn't happen on its own. So this program management team that's highlighted on the slide behind us, we've worked really hard over the past 4 years to build that out, turn it into a highly functioning team from the ground up, establish process, procedures that we can follow and deploy across the entire organization, not just within this team. Helps us bring order to the chaos, ultimately. That's the challenge we live every day, and really standardize the way we execute our most important initiatives across the business. We've got this team of 12 that are constantly working to manage the priorities, helping teams optimize how they're working, make them more efficient, facilitate challenging decision-making that we have to do on a daily basis throughout the organization, and ultimately lead us to better and more efficient outcomes as a company. All in line with what you've heard multiple times now when we talk about the Shift4 way, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit here. And just in case it's on your mind, this isn't an administrative program management function like you might find in other organizations, like I've seen in the past, and many of you may have experienced with other organizations. We're super focused on being value-added members of the teams we support, helping them in the trenches to solve challenging problems, rolling up our sleeves and helping to solve real problems with them, not just be an administrative arm and an annoyance or a reporting function within the organization. So that's very important. We try to embrace that in everything we do across the business. Also in line with the Shift4 way, we don't always get it right. So you'll see the continuous improvement highlighted on this. Whether it's internally within the PMO or across the team, regardless of where it sits in the organization, we're always trying to drive a debriefing, lessons learned process back into the business. We want to run into a problem and come out the other side of it with better processes and a better team in place than we were when we hit that problem in the first place. This team's critically focused on that. Obviously, Shift4 has been extremely acquisitive over the years here, and that's going to obviously continue to be part of our DNA moving forward. This PMO team has managed more than a dozen M&A integration programs over the last 4 years, and will continue to do so. To be successful with this much M&A, we need to execute aggressive integration plans. Again, our core values of delete the parts and execute with urgency are always front and center in this process. You won't find a dozen company websites with powered by Shift4 or a Shift4 company underneath of it. You won't find organizations within our org structure that look like companies within the companies. We break down the silos, we integrate the teams, and we execute efficiently on our integration strategies. My group also partners really closely with strategy to start that process from the get-go. So we're riding shotgun through the due diligence process, building detailed integration plans along the way, and ultimately executing them with conviction when we get to a close date. It's critical to how we win. I'm going to turn this over to Anthony Perez. He's going to talk you through a perfect example of this process in action when we acquired the Appetize business back in October of 2023.
Thanks, Josh. Anthony Perez, Global Head of Unified Commerce on the commercial team here at Shift4. I joined Shift4 4 years ago actually by way of acquisition. So I've had that unique perspective of coming in through an acquisition and then also subsequently being part of us ushering others in through acquisition as well. I was the CEO of VenueNext, which Shift4 acquired in early 2021. Before that, I was the Chief Marketing Officer of the Orlando Magic. Some quick background here. So we obviously were super familiar with Appetize. We were our primary competitor for many years. And in fact, if you go back to 2019, when VenueNext, prior to Shift4, chose to really pivot all the way into the point-of-sale space and compete directly with Appetize, there were a lot of folks that were questioning if that was a good idea. And it was largely because Appetize had a huge lead at that point. They'd raised a ton of money, and they had captured a significant portion of the market. But we really felt confident that we had a differentiated value proposition that was going to resonate. So we forged ahead. You fast forward to early 2021, Shift4 acquires us. That value proposition further differentiated, really enhanced. But even then, we were still very much the challenger, and Appetize was the 800-pound gorilla. And I remember vividly when we had our VenueNext all hands announcing the acquisition to everyone, Jared joined that, and he said, we are going to kick Appetize's ass. And there was a lot of nervous laughter, because even then, as I said, we were the challenger, and so there was a lot of ground to cover. It was a steep hill to climb, and so it sort of made everybody uncomfortable, such a bold statement. But the 2.5 years from there, that's exactly what we did. And a business, Appetize, that spot on paid more than $400 million for 2 years prior, they sold to us for $100 million. Now, I think stopping right there, most companies would be happy just given the scale of the customer base that Appetize had. I think most companies.
I'm going to run to the restroom real quick. I'll be right back. Guys came in right when I was
would be happy
leaving.
to stop there. Put a sticker on the hardware with the company logo and sort of move on.
AG said, lol, that's so funny. Let me know.
Certainly the easiest thing to do in some respects, but not Shift4. For us, this deal only made sense if we were able to realize the synergies of deleting the parts. That was a primary goal for us, to take that customer base off of the Appetize software and convert it to VenueNext, what's now SkyTab Venue with Shift4 for payments. And not to do it over 5 years, but to do it as quickly as we possibly could, to sprint at it, starting on day one. That drove every decision that we made, that drove every action that we took. And so how do we do that? Number one, we cherry-picked the best employees that we thought could contribute the most to the go-forward business. Not the business that we bought, but the business that we were going to maintain and grow going forward. We onboarded them quickly and ramped them up immediately on SkyTab Venue, on the Shift4 business, the value prop, and how to think about converting that customer base. We went out to all the Appetize customers and operating partners and said, we are not going to invest in 2 software platforms going forward. We're going to invest in SkyTab Venue, and the best thing you can do is convert to that software as soon.
Jake's downstairs, so he's still on the channel. I'm sure you've seen some of his videos. He was in the chat a second ago. He's the one that said the secret customer they're talking about is SpaceX. But yeah, let me know if you have any other questions. In church? No. He's here. He's here at the house.
As soon as possible. We'll make it as easy as we can, and that was certainly part of our consideration as well, just sort of foreseeing the objections that we might encounter, making sure that we had a clear commitment to that conversion, not letting ourselves sort of fall into the traps of, well, let's let this customer stay for a while because they've got this one little custom feature that we really need to deliver on before they're willing to convert, not letting that stuff get in the way, these marginal things. And then also just sort of foreseeing that some of these customers are going to see transitioning to another software platform as a challenge. It's going to take up time from them. I don't know when I'll get around to it. We made sure to build the tools on our side to make data migration, menu transitions, all of those things as seamless as we possibly could. So again, just preparing ourselves to overcome those objections in advance and being ready to go. And the results, I think, are pretty compelling. They speak for themselves. That acquisition happened 15 months ago. We've already converted over 70% of the Appetize customer base across major and minor league sports venues. And as Dave mentioned before, we offer a lot more than just F&B point of sale. We can power a much broader ecosystem for these.
What are we shilling? We're not shilling anything. I'm doing research on a real company that's publicly traded.
Teams, and that's certainly been a focus for us as well, growing those relationships, expanding those relationships even further. And to that end, we've already successfully upsold more than 25% of the professional sports customers that Appetize had at the time that we bought them. We've cross-sold them ticketing, which is a huge opportunity for us with a lot more room to go, where we feel really confident. So we've done all that over that 15-month period, and I think this acquisition is just a great example where our sort of like guiding principles have been the Shift4 way, deleting a part and having conviction around that, and executing with urgency. That's certainly been a driver for us. I will be at the dinner later for anybody who wants to talk about this further if there's interest. And in the meantime, I'll kick it back to Josh. Thank you.
Thanks, Anthony. Okay, so wanted to highlight a couple of things here on mission control briefly. Addison, if you give a wave, our technical lead, Addison, is here today, and he'll be at the dinner later. So I'll give you kind of the overview here. We've got a quick video on mission control, and if you have any detailed questions, definitely seek out Addison, because this is some really cool tech that we're putting in place within the organization. So it's also an organic internal initiative, right? So we've got a lot of M&A going on, as we've been talking about. This one's completely organic, and it's really built with a focus on keeping the company organized across a lot of different elements of the business. So we've kind of taken a play out of the space industry's playbook here of building out a mission control concept that monitors our most critical no-fail platforms and business processes. And really, the business process is where the magic is in a lot of this. So just highlight a few of them here that you can see on the screen. Time to revenue. So this team is monitoring how quickly we can get a customer going from signature to a go live. Mission Control helps monitor both SMB and enterprise customer base and their onboarding metrics. We look at time to onboard, time to install, time to go live, all with the mindset of finding deficiencies, finding bottlenecks, and driving positive action back into the process to eliminate those bottlenecks, ultimately accelerate the end-to-end process for our merchants. We believe that the faster and easier this process is for us internally, the better experience we can create for our customers externally. So super important insights that this team is gathering on a day-to-day basis. And then to highlight customer satisfaction and merchant attrition, since they kind of go together, this team is a back office team monitoring all the ticket trends overall across the business, but also on a merchant by merchant level to identify risks within the business or just general trends that need to be fed back to maybe product or operations or the commercial team to fix these things for our customers. So they're constantly looking at survey results, transaction volumes and customer transaction behavior, batching behavior, unsettled transactions that might be sitting with the customer longer than typical, and again, driving positive action back into the business to rectify anything they find. This team's constantly hunting for every piece of data they can to better understand our customers' pain points and partner with the right internal teams to work these problems to resolution. We've got a quick video to highlight this capability. I mentioned Addison, he's here, so definitely if you've got more questions, seek him out. And then
This is a great idea. I love that for a company. You just have a team exactly like you would at maybe like Houston Space Center when you have a mission going, get all of that key data, and then, you're optimizing for a few KPIs there. Time to revenue is super, super important. Customer satisfaction, merchant attrition, critical systems monitoring. If you're a payment company, you cannot have, your payment processing software go down when the stadium that you serve is hosting a football game. That's just not something that you can have happen. So yeah, I love this. That's a great idea.
And I'm going to turn it over to Michael here to tackle growth strategy.
What happens when you take the no-fail mindset and process from the space industry and apply it to payments? You get Shift4's new Mission Control platform. Mission Control is a centralized hub where merchant payment data is aggregated, analyzed, and actioned on. It's a game changer. As the new nerve center for Shift4's global operations, Mission Control brings together different data streams in one unified system. The mission is simple. Streamline onboarding for faster go-lives all over the world and faster time to revenue. Improve customer satisfaction and reduce attrition by finding and solving problems before they happen. Monitor connectivity to the entire payments ecosystem to improve platform reliability, stability, and uptime. And leverage AI and machine learning to detect fraud more effectively. Recovering sales and reducing attrition across the board. That's just the beginning. As more issues are corrected, actions will become automated, improving customer satisfaction and boosting our bottom line. Businesses are always looking for a competitive advantage. We're delivering that edge for our customers while keeping Shift4 ahead of the curve. Mission accomplished.
Really cool. Thanks, Josh. Hello, everyone. My name is Michael Isaacman. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Shift4. I want to recognize a few people from the commercial organization that are here today. Suzanne Davis, who runs hotels and restaurants for us globally. Anthony Perez, who you just got to know. He runs all the other verticals globally for us, Unified Commerce. Dustin Alpert is back there also. He runs our sports and entertainment division, so if you want tickets to a game, like he's your guy, he can definitely hook you up. Nate Hirschberg from marketing is here with the entire marketing team. And I also just want to take a moment to thank Tom and Paloma and the marketing team for making this day happen, because this was no easy task. So thank you. Thank you for making us look good. And the immersive graphics are really cool. So I'm going to talk about our growth strategy and how we win. I'm going to start with a question. So how do we compel a restaurant or a hotel or sports team to move to Shift4? So let me start with a conversation that I had 2 weeks ago with a prospective customer of ours. So this is a CFO of a multinational restaurant group with over 100 locations in North America, in the US and Canada. Sarah Grover. Hey, Sarah. She, on our board, she actually made the introduction to this prospective company. And we were in discussions about consolidating multiple point-of-sale solutions into one, removing support and gateway fees and device fees. And they saw the value, but they wanted to hold off because they had a pretty big early termination fee. 2 weeks ago, their gateway provider, not Shift4, informed them that all their PIN pads were reaching out of end of life. So they're facing an urgent and costly refresh. And they made the decision to begin the migration to move over to Shift4 starting next month, saving them hundreds of thousands of dollars and reducing 5 vendors down to 1. For restaurants operating on razor-thin margins,
That's a key point right there. So that was exactly what I was talking about earlier, where this vendor has 4 different providers, and they can move all 4 of those down to just Shift4, and Shift4 can give them all the same services. It's such a huge value add.
These cost savings are game changing. And this is what we do. Whether it's a small bakery in Sussex, England, or a complex resort like Fontainebleau, Shift4 tackles complex challenges and lowers the total cost of ownership for our customers. We've spent 20 years in the integrated payment space, and we've intentionally chosen verticals with weak competition, where we can become the market leaders. And I think we've done a pretty good job. I think you've seen some of this already. I know Taylor's addressed it, Dave Hoffman's addressed it. We're number 1 in sports and entertainment. If a venue chooses an alternative to Shift4, they're stitching together at least 6 to 10 different vendors across multiple platforms to try and solve the problem. A hotel that works with us, we're the only ones that have a solution that solves for every integration on site, online booking, loyalty. We eliminate support, gateway, and device fees, which is why resorts like Fontainebleau, Pebble Beach, the Halakalani, and Wynn choose Shift4. We're close in restaurants, probably number 2, adding tens of thousands of restaurants a year in the US, Canada, UK, and Europe. Industry leaders like Tao, Cordish, Balthazar, Shoney's are all choosing SkyTab. And I want to thank Sturge for making his way from Tao. He's here today. I know it's nerve-wracking to record a video, and you looked really good up on the big screen. While I'm thanking customers, I also want to thank Andy, who's here from Altera, representing Unified Commerce and Resorts and F&B. There's a lot to do at Altera. And then we have a great partner from St. Jude, Alsac. We got Rick and Kira from St. Jude right up front. And then BJ, Robert Neal from Allegiant Airlines. Thank you for coming in. Another customer that stepped up and recorded a video for us. And you look like a rock star. You're a movie star now, so thank you. So I go back. In the unified payment space, we have the card present expertise that the e-commerce leaders, our competition does not right now. And this is why we can announce wins like Altera, supporting their on-mountain resorts at over 17 US and Canadian ski resorts, and online payments for the Icon Pass, providing access to over 50 ski destinations across the globe. And when we engaged with Altera, the value prop, we started with one resort where we're already supporting them, and then the discussion expanded to being able to support them in US and Canada, and then being able to support the e-commerce work that they're doing with Icon Pass. And it just turned out that they were already in discussions with Givex. So the roadmap's going to take a little.
It sounds like their e-com platform works best for vendors that aren't just online. So if you're just online, you probably go through a platform like Shopify or something. And I don't know, maybe Shopify uses Shift4. I don't know who their payment provider is. That'd be a really interesting something to look into. I know they probably partner with PayPal, Visa, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't know exactly how all that works for Shopify. But it sounds like their unified commerce platform, which is kind of their e-commerce payments method, or our product that they offer. It sounds like the take rate on that, or the kind of customers that are opting for that product, are probably customers that they already have on the SkyTab product, where they do, you're at a, let's take an example of the ski resort like he's talking about. So you have your bar at the ski resort, and that bar is using SkyTab. And you get the customer on with SkyTab, super well known, payment, POS, point of sale software that you can use. And then you realize, I'm already using Shift4 for my point of sales, and I have to sell these, season passes, and they have a e-com like payment processing product there. So we're going to go with them there as well. So it's very interesting. I wonder how much of their e-com sales come purely from, e-commerce platforms versus platforms or companies that also have physical points of sales.
I'll bet over the next 18 months, you're going to see one of the best technology showcases around. So thank you, Andy. Returning to my original question, what drives customers to choose Shift4? Well, as you've heard before, we solve complex challenges and reduce costs for our customers. Whether it's a high-end restaurant like Komodo, where we're gonna eat tonight, or a transit system in Portugal. That's what Shift4 does. Our early investments in products like SkyTab POS and SkyTab Venue have secured our leadership in key US verticals, which we're now expanding to globally. Our own products and the 550 plus software integrations empower customers to operate frictionlessly across the world. And then these new integrations that typically come when we're installing at places like Fontainebleau unlock new verticals for us. Think about a EV charging station that a resort needs to stand up, or golf management software. Those unlock new opportunities for us, and they expand Shift4's TAM. Our end-to-end solution saves money for businesses of all sizes, eliminating multiple vendors, extra device fees, gateway fees, and operational inefficiencies. Let's spend a little time on cross-sell. I think we do a pretty good job at cross-selling. At a high level, we trade legacy dollars for SaaS and payment revenue. The process begins with strategic acquisitions, whether it's a gateway or a point of sale system or loyalty or gift card solution. That's our foot in the door. Once we're in, we present our value proposition, again, eliminating gateway fees, providing free devices, reducing complexity, lowering total cost of ownership. Sales is hard. Merchants are running their businesses. They don't want to think about or talk about payments, so they're probably never going to respond to a cold call. Having an existing relationship with sticky software that Shift4 owns makes it so much easier, and it gives us so many different levers to pull. This is a huge advantage that we have over the competition. If you look at the top chart, you can see our addressable pipeline has grown almost fivefold since our IPO. If you believe that we're great at cross-selling, and you liked our cross-sell pipeline at IPO, you should love us now. And we're successfully exporting this playbook globally, partnering with major brands like Best Western, Wolt, Nobu, Vail, Altera. What started as a single country relationship has evolved into a multi-market partnership. And that's why these clients are choosing Shift4 to power their global expansion. We're seeing similar success with our partners. For instance, we just launched our first hotel in the UK on Visual Matrix, which is one of our property management system ISVs, one of our partners. They've already committed to rolling out SkyTab in all the hotel properties that have an F&B revenue center. Our international card-present expansion is taking off, as you can see in the bottom chart. 6 months ago, non-US card-present production was a rounding error. Last month, a third of our applications were from Canada, Europe, and the UK. A third. Just like our journey in the US, where we went from 0 market share to dominating the sports and entertainment vertical, we're now repeating that process with new verticals and new geographies. Anthony did a pretty good job talking about the appetized cross-sell. Let me give you a quick refresher just on how we entered the sports space. We planted our flag in sports with the Raiders at Allegiant Stadium right here in Las Vegas before they even opened their doors. One of the strategic technology partners in the venue was VenueNext. We went to market with them as a partner. In 2021, we acquired the business and quickly began dominating the S&E vertical. Our goal was to support every revenue center associated with the venue. It's the same playbook we use when we're going into a resort. We want everything that's in here. Fortunately, there's a couple boutiques that are independent. You heard the story. In 2021, we struck a deal early with SeatGeek and Paciolan. So the most coveted revenue center in sports and entertainment is ticketing. It's the highest volume contributor. In 2023, we signed an agreement and began the integration work to unlock Ticketmaster, which is the whale in the ticketing space. This significantly expanded our TAM, and we continue to expand and cross-sell in the US while we unlock new geographies and posted signature wins like FC Barcelona and Exeter, and there's several more to follow. This playbook is working in Europe, where we're rapidly expanding in transportation and EV charging, 2 massive high-growth verticals that match our strengths in the card-present payment space. Shift4 was an early mover in the EV charging space. We obtained EVC-ready device certifications ahead of our competitors, and we formed partnerships with software and hardware vendors. We started in Italy, and now we're live in 10 countries across Europe. In parallel, we began solving complex problems for European bus and transit systems. The legacy closed-loop MetroCard-like system was great for daily commuters, but it wasn't good for anybody else that was going to use the subway system or the tube system. We worked on building out our own open-loop solution that provides a seamless experience, supporting tap when you enter the station, tap when you leave the station. Our first one was in Portugal, and now we're operating in Romania, Italy, Germany, and Greece is about to go live. And we literally just executed an agreement today with Curb in the UK to support their iconic black cabs across London, supporting both their card-present and card-not-present needs. And we're now operating in the rental car space, where we have our first handful of sites up and running in the US, and they're supporting both online payments and a pay-on-the-lot solution, very similar to our pay-at-the-table solution that we're using in restaurants right now. And we're going to follow TSD globally to support rental cars across the world. We start small, we expand quickly, and we take market share. We discussed how we win business. I wanted to give you a quick overview on the process behind the scenes. Our customer acquisition, onboarding, and go-live process is a proven, repeatable system enabling rapid global expansion. In the US, the majority of our SMB business is driven by our own Skyforce Direct organization. This team was primarily built by insourcing our distribution partners and organically recruiting bartenders, servers, and restaurant managers with a passion for the industry that we retrain on the Shift4 way. They use our technology platform to plan their day, meet with prospects, and rapidly board new merchants, which then creates a digital assembly line to process the order, build the software, and program the menu. Our launch team then assists the restaurants to ensure a successful go-live. The process is very similar for SMB hotels and retail locations. Our enterprise directors use the same technology stack to assist our most complex prospects. They leverage SkyTab POS, SkyTab Venue, and our 550+ integrations to win new business. Once sold, they hand off to an enterprise account manager to work through checklists within our digital platform and ensure a successful go-live. The enterprise account managers continue to manage and grow these enterprise relationships for the remainder of the customer's lifecycle. We're constantly refining the process and adapting to new regions as we enter new locations across the globe. In summary, our value proposition resonates across many verticals. We have built an unmatched customer acquisition engine, and we're scaling it globally with precision. We continue growing market share with our own products and strategic integrations. Complex customers drive new integrations, fueling land and expand opportunities for us. Our $1.4 trillion cross-sell pipeline is overflowing, creating massive market advantage for us. And just as our cross-sell funnel has expanded, we've also scaled our TAM, and the best part is, every new market we've entered is growing faster than our traditional markets. We'll continue to deploy capital strategically, expanding our reach, cross-selling our solutions, and winning in every vertical we enter. Thank you for your time.
Oh my gosh, look how much of the expanded TAM. That's insane. IPO to 14 trillion. That's what we like to see. Plus. Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, anywhere where money is transacted, this company can get in there and, you know, facilitate those transactions. So, I mean, that's really, really powerful. So, love to see it. Love to see a ton of growth potential for companies when we're thinking about investing in them.
Over to you, Luke.
Thank you, Michael. Hi, everyone. I'm Luke Thomas, Chief Strategy Officer here at Shift4. One sec. So I wanted to start just by hitting on the strategy group's ultimate objective, which is really maximizing the long-term growth of the company in a capital-efficient manner. So our job is to ensure that every dollar that we invest back into the company has an above-market return associated with it. Basically, how do we get the most long-term benefit from the least amount of capital invested? And I think where we're different than most of our competitors is that this capital efficiency ethos has been seared into the company DNA by Jared. So it's not just the strategy group that has capital efficiency top of mind, but every division across the entire company is acutely aware of the value of every dollar they spend. And this really comes from the company's unique history. Shift4 didn't raise outside capital for our first 16 years in business, which meant that every dollar spent had to be earned. And this is a legacy that'll stay with us for many years to come. So we know the capital efficiency is important, but how do we think about how much capital we actually have available to invest? And it's basically that cash flow for investing section of our cash flow statement, which we think about in these three buckets of customer acquisition, product investment, and M&A. This is really the excess capital that we have available to us to invest back in the business. So stepping through each and looking at customer acquisition first, which we really think about the upfront hardware that we give away to a merchant when they switch to Shift4, or the bonuses we pay out, the salespeople or distribution partners. Basically everything we have to give away upfront to win a net new merchant. We will always allocate capital here first because of how phenomenal the returns are. This capital has a sub 12-month payback period and an almost double-digit LTV to CAC, meaning that every single dollar deployed here has an incredible return and we will always prioritize it. Next, looking at product investment, which we really define as our capitalized R&D line. This one is incredibly important for building a long-term sustainable advantage by having the best product in the market. And the better your product is, the more merchants want to switch to Shift4, the more customer acquisition dollars we're able to deploy. This is why we've increased investment here so much recently, having 6x'd our capitalized R&D over the last 4 years. Finally, we have M&A and shareholder investments like stock buybacks. We'll get into more detail on our acquisition strategy on the next slide, but I think the important piece to highlight is that a primary rationale for doing acquisitions is to still feed that first bucket of customer acquisition. So it's really the latter two ones of product investment and M&A that are primarily geared toward being able to deploy more customer acquisition dollars. And this takes us into our acquisition strategy and why we have an M&A-led growth model. And I think it's important to highlight up front that we don't do acquisitions because it's easier or because we have to. It's actually a much higher execution bar from a skill set and company culture perspective, but the results are so superior that it's worth it. So this page lays out the primary advantages our acquisition-led strategy affords us, and I wanted to hit on each of them through the lens of a recent acquisition to help bring them to life. So we'll use GiveX to step through the details. Starting with the advantage customer acquisition cost model, and this is one of the most important parts of our acquisition strategy that I think we can do a better job communicating. So using GiveX, we paid right around $130 million in enterprise value for 130,000 merchant locations, so $1,000 per location up front. Then taking a reasonable assumption for free hardware and sales incentives on top of that, you're looking at $2,000 to $3,000 all in for customer acquisition, including the price of the company. For context, Toast spends right around $17,000 per location in sales and marketing alone, meaning that our acquisition-led growth strategy is over 5x more efficient than almost all of our SaaS and payment competitors that use PPC and traditional advertising channels instead of buying a sticky base of merchants using an ancillary product that you can cross-sell software and payments into. Moving on to enhanced platform and capabilities. And I think this is one that's often overlooked because while it's true that the primary rationale for buying GiveX was to cross-sell payments into their merchant base, we also picked up a best-in-class gift and loyalty platform that we can integrate into our overall platform to offer to all of our merchants, enhancing stickiness and monetization. This is a huge advantage of buying these payment-adjacent point solutions that really should be features as a part of a broader platform instead of standalone companies. You get to upgrade your service offerings in all of these areas to the market leader without actually ascribing much deal value. Next, we delete the parts in all of our acquisitions, which results in operational efficiencies and cost savings. And in a lot of acquisitions, this means deleting the part on the acquired company side, whether that be a legacy technology or an internal system. But sometimes it means deleting the part on the Shift4 side, as was the case here. We had an older, homegrown gift card system that paled in comparison to GiveX's. And so we made theirs our default go-forward offering, enabling us to delete the part on the Shift4 side and unlock cost savings. And finally, on accelerated time to market. We were already organically expanding to Canada, where we have gateway-only merchants and existing US merchants that have Canadian locations and wanted us to expand there. But this massively accelerated our pace, giving us a huge base of merchants that are now more interested in our more complete offering, a bunch of valuable sales talent with relationships, and the local product expertise needed to understand what you need to win in each individual province. And just to call it out, we have all of these advantages are in addition to the fact that we got a profitable growing company, which is the only reason that almost every other company does acquisitions. But we underwrite our deals on the back of these primarily 4 advantages, and the fact that we also get a profitable growing company is just a cherry on top versus the core reason that others do deals. So given this unique acquisition strategy, where our acquisition fills up our cross-sell funnel, allowing us to deploy our next customer acquisition dollar, how do we accurately measure return on capital? Because you can't just look at M&A or product investment or R&D. You really have to look at the total capital deployed across all 3 buckets over a long enough time horizon and say how much incremental EBITDA and free cash flow did that capital generate. This gives a simple ROI view of how much profit we generated per dollar invested back into the company. The nice thing here is that it's a totally transparent measuring stick that anyone can look up and use it to compare us to competitors or internal return benchmarks. So how have we performed? If you look back at the last 5 years since we've had public filings, we've invested right around $2.7 billion across those 3 buckets, and that $2.7 billion in capital has generated an incremental annual EBITDA of $590 million and free cash flow of $424 million, meaning that every dollar that we invested back into the business was at a sub 5x EBITDA multiple and a 6.5x free cash flow multiple, or a 16% free cash flow yield, which is quite attractive considering the majority of our competitors and us trade in the 4 to 8% free cash flow yield range. Said another way, we are paying way less per dollar of free cash flow than you can get anywhere else, which is what gives us confidence that we'll be able to generate well above market returns on the capital that we deploy. So to recap, we don't have an acquisition-led growth strategy because we have to, but because it creates sustainable above-market results if you're able to execute it well. It's why we've been able to deploy a lot of capital over the last 5 years at excellent rates of return, and why we have customer acquisition costs multiples lower than our competitors that use traditional models. But why are we successful at it? What makes us special? To start, we saw the opportunity in the convergence of software and payments before it was even called integrated payments, and established unique rights to win in verticals that would benefit. Now, the integrated payment journey is pretty well understood in the US today, but there are still hundreds of companies that are payment-adjacent point solutions that should be features as a part of a broader platform instead of standalone companies. And even more excitingly, the integrated payment journey is very much in its early days abroad, which is why you've seen us move quickly into the international market, and as Taylor will talk about shortly, we'll continue to make bold moves to further our track record of picking our spots early and establishing dominant positions in corners of the market where value will accrue. Another really important piece is that there's no mystery internally as to what our acquisition strategy is or how we achieve the synergies that we underwrite on each deal. We'll go into more detail in a sec, but we have 3 acquisition themes that are clearly defined and well understood across the entire company. Each one has its own specific synergy realization playbook that Josh and the strategy team and PMO work to implement together. And then every single deal that we do, we learn from that deal, we iterate the playbook, and we make it better for the next one. And next is our ability to source and execute. Partially driven by our reputation in the market as an extremely efficient buyer, and partially driven by the incredibly talented team that we've assembled. So to give a sense, we evaluated over 300 deals in 2024, the vast majority of which were outside of banker-led sales processes. We ended up performing concentrated diligence on about 50 of those. We issued IOIs for a little over 15 and actually executed on 5 of them. And I did want to call out the strategy group back there. If y'all can raise your hands, would encourage you to find them later. We have Kevin, Sushmi, David, and Nilesh. They are all acutely aware of the quantity of deals that we looked at last year. And it's really these features that enable us to unlock that kind of long-term sustainable above-market results that we talked about on the last page. So I wanted to walk through those 3 acquisition themes, and I'm going to use a recent example to highlight our synergy realization playbook in each of them. So the first one we call top off the funnel and delete the parts. This is really what I think of as the core Shift4 playbook. You're buying a sticky base of merchants using an ancillary product that you can cross-sell payments into and then delete that part. A good recent example here is Igen, a $30 billion card-present gateway in Canada and the US that we closed on in November. So the most obvious synergy clearly is cross-selling payments into that $30 billion gateway-only merchant base, which is a strategy that we know how to execute extremely well. But you also get cost savings from deleting the part. In this case, the Igen gateway, given that we have the perfect replacement product in the Shift4 gateway. So we can execute our gateway sunset strategy by increasing pricing on those merchants on the legacy product, incentivizing them to move to our end-to-end platform, and deleting the part. And a third, and I think often overlooked advantage here, is that we picked up a ton of valuable talent. So whether that be scarce payments engineering talent that we can reallocate to the Shift4 gateway to accelerate pace there, or valuable sales talent with great relationships. Next is international expansion, where we expand our distribution or payment rails into new geographies so that we can recreate that same Shift4 playbook in new markets. And a good recent one here is Vectron, a German restaurant point-of-sale company with 65,000 merchants and a dealer network of over 300 dealers. The most obvious synergy, again, is cross-selling payments into that 65,000 merchant base, which, by the way, was almost entirely unmonetized whenever we bought it. And while it took longer than we'd have liked, we launched our payments-led value proposition into that dealer network at the very end of last year, and I'm excited to say that we've already signed up hundreds of merchants, and the pace is rapidly accelerating. And despite the value in all of that payment volume from the embedded merchants, it's actually that 300 dealer network that's the most valuable asset here, as evidenced by the fact that it took Vectron over 30 years to assemble this network of highly specialized POS resellers. They're already thrilled to be selling our new payments-led value prop. They're going to be even more excited whenever they can sell a cutting-edge cloud product like SkyTab POS. Finally, we picked up a ton of valuable local talent, not only in Germany, but across Europe, that understands the product requirements for each individual market and will ensure that SkyTab is ready to dominate. And then lastly, we have capability enhancement, where we're expanding our capability set in order to establish the Shift4 playbook in a new vertical or product line. While we don't do many pure play product acquisitions, I think the Venue Next one is a good example, which we've already heard a bit about. But because it opened up an entirely new vertical to us that was ripe for disruption from that integrated software and payments playbook. So in general, we look for verticals where there isn't a lot of competition, and sports and entertainment was a great example of that, with no clear market leader. And most importantly, we had the demonstrated evidence that our value prop could work in the market because we had already partnered with the Venue Next team prior to the acquisition and won several large stadiums. We saw how much more value we could provide to those teams by bundling the software and payments, and still had a good margin on just the payments as Shift4 standalone. We knew that bringing them completely together could help us dominate the market. And the only thing I wanted to hit on here really is that all of our previous acquisitions fit neatly into one or multiple of those three buckets I just walked through. And in each one, we relentlessly executed on our synergy realization playbook and then fine-tuned it based on everything we learned for the next one. And this is the flywheel that gives us confidence we'll continue being able to deploy capital at excellent rates of return. And I do know it's a bit intimidating to see all the logos on that last page because it's a lot of parts, which is why we are maniacally focused on deleting the parts. And so I did want to show here just kind of the surviving standalone pieces. So this is the actual go-forward profile of Shift4. And as you can see, it's almost entirely SkyTab, Shift4, and very recent acquisitions. And I wanted to end with a quick case study that we haven't shared before and take a deeper look at Finaro. So I think very important to recognize here that this was a pure capability expansion play for us. So we needed the payment infrastructure in Europe, and they had best-in-class payment rails. So this deal was really all about giving us the payments plumbing that we needed to take what made us special in the US over to Europe. And despite that, it's actually performed quite well financially also. So we basically doubled the company in the 3 years since we signed the deal, having increased volume and net revenue by 2x and adjusted EBITDA by 2.5x. And importantly, we've done this while meaningfully diversifying the business, taking it from 3% card present at the time that we signed it to 30% card present as of December. And I think this is pretty representative of Shift4 as a whole. We've grown the business really nicely while meaningfully diversifying it and increasing the durability of the business by leveraging our unique strengths, in this case, card present expertise. And with that, I think we have a very short break, and then Taylor will talk us through the next giant funnel that we're going to leverage this European payment infrastructure for. Thank you.
Last stretch. Really appreciate everyone for maintaining the focus. I think this is the right framing. Why do the largest M&A transaction in the company's history with a 26-year, brilliant, inspiring founder on his way out the door onto a new mission? In fairness, that was, I think, a question a lot of our board members had. So if you're wondering those same things, you got a great audience of governance, challenging us on these bold moves. So worth talking to them because I think as we kind of matured the process, discussed them through the transaction, it became obvious to all of us that this is an imperative. It's not something that we would like to do. It's something that at this moment in our time with our capability set and with, quite frankly, the transaction being something that was available to us, we had to execute again. So spent a little bit of time on the rationale, a lot of time on the business. I get really excited when we announce a transaction and 90% of the room doesn't know what the business does, and yet they're embedded in tens of thousands of the largest retailers in the world. That means we're doing something right. I can point to, I guess, I don't know, at least half the room gives us M&A ideas constantly. This is not one that anyone presented to us, which is really cool. It speaks to the talent and sourcing of the strategy team. So little highlights on the transaction itself. We signed a definitive agreement this past weekend to acquire Global Blue for $2.5 billion. It works out to $7.50 a share. It'll be an all-cash transaction that we expect to close in the second half of 2025. There's a regulatory review period, but I do not want to scare anyone who's been with us for a handful of years. This is not a 18 or 20-month regulatory review period. These are a handful of licenses in countries that we've already begun the process on, and we expect to be concluded within about 6 months or so. So what does Global Blue do? They are the #1 provider of VAT tax refund services across an incredible base of merchants that I'll talk about in just a second. When I say #1, it's like 80% market share, and the #2 has 20 and is losing. That's a really exciting standalone business for us. They enable the best merchants in the world to deliver an incredible commerce experience for international travelers that are shopping abroad and get a discount. They don't have to pay the VAT as long as they prove that they're leaving the country. This is a technology solution that enables all of that. And if that sounds complicated to you all, it should. And that's what excites us about it. This means you're plugged into in-store transactions. You're talking to tons of different data systems. You're maintaining things like passport information so you know what the shopper's doing and where they're going and that they're actually eligible for the refund. The refund can come in numerous forms. It can come in cash. It can come in local currency. It can come in the currency of the cardholder themselves. And they enable this across 50 plus countries around the world. Incredible. They do it at both the country level, where they manage a VAT refund process for all of the merchants in a particular country, and then they do it down at the merchant level in other geographies, where it's up to the merchant to create a great experience between them and the consumer, and quite frankly the customs agents that have to make sure all this works. They have about $30 billion of what they would call sales in store. These are the transactions that they're actually enabling these functions on. You can think about it as our own payment volume. This is the payment volume of the transactions that they are in the mix on. And yet, despite that, these businesses are selling lots of goods to all sorts of consumers who aren't going through this refund process. It's a local purchaser. So there's a huge payment pie available to us, and we've got an incredible foot in the door with a mission-critical vendor that already owns 80% of the market share that these stores can't live without. Obviously, selling to international shoppers is a critical component to how a lot of these businesses operate. We estimate that payment volume at about $500 billion plus. I think sometimes there's like eye rolls or yawns when we talk about the payment opportunity inside of an acquisition. When you start to see some of the names on the page, you'll get a sense for that being a pretty conservative figure. And again, phenomenal standalone business that's been growing nicely in their own market and winning share. They have about 486 million euros of revenue in the calendar year 2024 and 188 million of adjusted EBITDA. This is a great business. This is a business that's got good margins, that's growing fast, that's digitizing inside of their customer base. They're making refunds easier and easier to access, which we found incredibly compelling. What I think the market didn't necessarily appreciate was, number one, it was 90% owned by private equity sponsors and a really significant overhang that made liquidity a challenge and actually getting into the equity a challenge. And their market share inside of their core product offering was so high, it was kind of hard to envision where they go from there. Lastly, I'll point out, and actually I'll skip to the next slide. This is the punchline, right? These are now merchants we are a critical vendor for when we close on this transaction. It's not just a merchant solution. Providing an incredible consumer experience is core to making this all work. The business does not earn revenue unless an international shopper goes into a store, buys a good, and leaves the country and gets the refund, and actually goes through the steps required to get the refund. This is why forward-thinking digitization in a world where travel was coming back incredibly rapidly was really, really important to maintaining and growing the share that they had inside the market. So what do we get as a result of this two-sided network? We get about 15 million shoppers that are traveling around the world, buying luxury goods. This is a group of shoppers that I think any great business would love insights to, live inside of the Global Blue mobile application, contains all of their data to fulfill the refund experience, and you can present these shoppers with really interesting ideas as they travel around the world. Clearly interesting corollaries with the hotel business that we have inside the United States and is growing in the rest of the world. I talked a little bit about the tax-free shopping side of the business. Any of you that know our M&A philosophy, there's never one thesis, there's never two theses, there's usually like 3 or 4 that help us build conviction around something like this. They also have a payments business that does dynamic currency conversion and FX exchange solutions for a wide swath of the international merchant market. Dynamic currency conversion, for those of you that aren't familiar, is the ability to pick the currency within which you're paying with at the point of sale. It's really important if you're a foreign traveler and you want to know exactly in your home currency the charge that's going to show up on your card, as opposed to the currency in the country that you're in, and who knows what that's going to look like on your bill. We've never offered this to any of our hotels or any of our merchants inside the United States. So we've kind of alluded to this idea that we've got this cross-sell into this phenomenal new set of merchants through the tax-free business that Global Blue offers. We also have a dynamic currency conversion cross-sell into our base of customers. Multiple ways to win, especially in a large transaction that's already a great underlying business at a pretty decent entry price, is kind of the hallmark of how we think about underwriting a transaction like this. How does it work? I gave an example here. This is a great takeaway for the slides that you're all going to see on our website later. But essentially, shopper goes into the store and buys a product and is entitled to a refund of the VAT tax that they paid on that product. Their data is collected either through the mobile application or, quite frankly, right in the store. I was in Paris last week. Great due diligence when you get to buy your wife an expensive handbag and call it a business trip. Card taken in the store, scan my passport. By the time I was home, there was a refund on my card. And a meaningful refund, right? It was about 10% of the purchase price, so it really compels users to want to do this. This is an incredibly compelling process for international travelers around the world, whether that's Asian travelers going to Europe, US travelers going to Europe or the Middle East or Asia. These are really, really interesting kind of travel leading incentives that countries are putting in place to compel people to want to travel there. It's very meaningful if you've got this VAT infrastructure to say, hey, if you come over and spend your money here, you get it back. And the easier that process can be, the more compelling that is to both the country and the merchants inside that country, and they make the process really, really damn easy. So I talked about kind of why we like the business on a standalone basis. Tax-free shopping is growing all over the world. It is just an increased trend that if you're applying a VAT tax inside of your country, waiving that for shoppers that are going to be incremental inside your country is just good common sense. Here are a list of just a handful of geographies that have continued to make this easier over the years. So there's like there's a macro trend that supports the underlying business. They already own 80% share, but the TAM is growing as countries adopt this. Further penetration into these markets through making the process easier, more digital is really, really interesting. They're winning merchants every single day by taking merchants who've traditionally used a really cumbersome paper process. I've actually got to submit a form, mail a form to get my refund, and I don't even remember when I bought it by the time the refund may show up into an incredibly digital experience like I just had last week, is it's growing the number of VAT refunds that actually occur inside of their existing merchant base. So you're not just talking about luxury retail growth, you're talking about digitization being a growth lever on top of that, and geography expansion being a growth lever on top of that. Really, really compelling business. Separately, all these value-added solutions that I talked about that we get to do inside of their merchant base and inside of our merchant base. Hopefully this is checking a lot of boxes for those of you that know our M&A strategy. And then this concept of a two-sided network, a really awesome toehold into consumers, is something we've really only seen in nascent stages through our stadium business that Anthony talked about. 15 million consumers that we've got incredible insights into and can action around is going to be really, really impactful for our entire collective merchant base. I would also say it gives us a really nice toehold around the world. So this is not a transaction we could have embarked on if we didn't have meaningful payment capabilities in a lot of the countries that we just talked about. This is something that we've looked at for over half a decade, and quite frankly couldn't get conviction in without having those capabilities that we can actually deliver these merchants a heck of a lot more in their home country than just what Global Blue is doing for them today. So it fulfills that really, really nicely. This is an awesome takeaway. It really illustrates the idea that it's a meaningful component to enhancing our unified commerce platform. This is not a nice to have across the merchant base that they serve. It's a must have, and there's one competitor that's not doing great these days. So the idea that you're taking a must have component and embedding it into a solution is really impactful. I illustrate that example of a merchant that could hypothetically be using the Global Blue product suddenly can enable e-commerce sales really, really quickly in a foreign geography through our platform, and hopefully you get the sense as to why this is so compelling. Meaningful revenue synergies, so we'll talk about that in a second, just what we think they can be, but there's a lot of them in just the concept of multiple cross-sells, natural geographic expansion for us. A strategic partnership with International and Tencent. So these are two of the best e-commerce companies in the world that recognized the criticality of this product for their consumer base. So they're predominantly Asian travelers traveling all over the world using their wallets to pay, wanted a seamless VAT refund experience, and so they were shareholders of this business before us, and they've agreed to retain a stake in Shift4, which we're really excited about, and continue collaboration. And we've had lots of dialogue already about how we enable the predominance of mobile wallets in Asia across our existing customer base in the United States, so stadiums, hotels, restaurants, etc. And then a very disciplined transaction. So despite the incredible opportunity, despite the finite timeline we found ourselves on, we weren't going to compromise on what we thought was what we had to do to make the transaction work if we got every single one of those theses wrong. So the stylistic difference between, I think, Jared and myself, and something we've been talking a lot about, is I think about the world in terms of if everything you think you can do goes sideways, are you still happy with where you are? In this case, the transaction is a resounding yes. And then he says, if you screw up that badly, you're not going to be at the helm too much longer, which is a nice motivator. Quick snapshot of the combined business. Again, leading platforms in highly adjacent verticals, hospitality, luxury, retail, and travel. We do not have critical components to the value chain that they offer, and likewise. So we do not offer dynamic currency conversion. It's been on our product pipeline for much longer than it should have. This is an instant synergy in that regard. It allows us to eliminate multiple vendors that we might have been considering working with. And then separately, they do not have any of the payment stack, but are deeply embedded inside of it. And what I mean by that is when you pay, there is data going to Global Blue. When you get a refund, they need to go back into that transaction and make sure that refund works. So we can now offer them the rest of the stack for their merchant base and vice versa. And then scaled presence in a lot of countries. So we showed you a lot of countries on the map where we've got emerging capabilities. They have scaled presence, they have physical employees, they have booths in airports. All of these things give us further rationale to expand into countries, give us more confidence in our journey around the world. So whereas a month ago we might have been looking at a new e-commerce country as can we go sell restaurants, can we go sell hotels, can we go sell stadiums, we now have the ability to ask ourselves, if we're in that country, can we go sell e-commerce and physical payments to the best retailers in the world who happen to be operating in those countries. The map gives you a sense of where we are today as a result of this signing. Again, embedded payment capabilities. I think Dave had Australia on his must-do list. They already have payments infrastructure in Australia and a great dynamic currency conversion business there, so that'll check a box for the product team, which is really exciting as well. And then lastly, synergies. This is really just a basic underwriting of let's assume we can cross-sell in a very modest way into their base. Will that mitigate any risk we have around growth? Yes. Can we cross-sell dynamic currency conversion? Do we know the percentage of our spend across our merchant base that's foreign cards? Yes. We think in a very reasonable scenario, this adds $80 million of synergies on top of the business itself. That's really attractive, and $70 million of kind of flow through down to EBITDA. And I hit this partnership. I don't want to understate the value of it, though. These are incredibly impactful companies that have been driving e-commerce innovation around the world. I would say the fact that we could mutually come to an understanding of kind of our vision for commerce around the world and their vision for commerce around the world, and both be excited to partner with each other is really, really, really exciting. Kind of helps underwrite or put a good housekeeping seal of approval on the path we're on from the standpoint of two of the best e-commerce companies in the world. We hit this early on, and it was referenced on the call, but give you just another double click down into how this transaction we anticipate the closing to work. So it's 100% cash transaction today. There's a committed bridge financing by our advisory and banking partners. We intend to replace that with longer term financing over the course of the next few months. The exact mix remains to be determined, but that's actually a really good thing. We've seen kind of every option of financing available to us on the transaction. So we're going to be coming to the market with more permanent financing around the transaction in the next month or two. That's it. I'll hand it over to Nancy for the financial outlook and then Q&A.
All right, nice to see you all. I feel compelled because all of my colleagues kind of gave some shout outs, and 3 of my awesome teammates are here, and I dare I say you could also speak to them at dinner. But in the room up here in the front is our Chief Accounting Officer, Jay Whalen. And in the back of the room, although I can't see, is our Global Head of Tax, Dylan O'Hare, is back there. And definitely one of my secret weapons, the head of our strategic finance organization, is Corey Farley. So Corey, we were gonna hide you in a closet, but you could still come to dinner. Okay, so as we go forward here, I know we've covered Q4 a bit. Jared's had a lot to say. And for sure, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I would say if you're kind of historically just going up and to the right, it's a pretty good picture. And so kind of speaks for itself. A few things I want to point out. Organic revenue growth for full year 2024 was north of 25% as promised, 26% to be exact, and really pleased with the momentum of organic growth. Positive operating leverage with adjusted EBITDA growth exceeding revenue growth, and continue to expand free cash flow conversion. Excluding the drag of M&A, a couple of things I want to point out. EBITDA margins expanded over 400 points this year. SG&A on a full year basis, without acquisitions, which obviously get consolidated, low single digit growth, and without one-time expenses, we were flat year over year. And I bring that up because I know Taylor pointed that out when Kim was out here. We have tons of focus on that discipline that we have around expense takeout and taking out the parts. And we've talked about that, quarter to quarter, and things like Mission Control, Project Phoenix. All of these are margin expansion opportunities that are still ahead of us. Okay, let me keep going here just to keep us on time, because I think Luke did a great job of going through kind of capital allocation, which I won't spend any time on that. But representing first 2025 guidance. We're going into 25 very confident. 200 billion to 220 billion volume growth, which is 21 to 33% growth. Gross revenue less network fees between 1.65 and 1.72 billion, 22 to 27% growth.
I'm pausing it because this is some really important. That's revenue growth. Don't want to miss this.
Adjusted EBITDA between 830 and 855 million.
Oh, what happened here?
23 to 26% growth, and adjusted for
23 to 26% growth. For adjusted EBITDA. This is for adjusted EBITDA growth for 2024, so that's looking backwards, trailing. But we want to know if this is a good investment in the future. So we want these metrics for the future. Okay, so 22 to 27% revenue growth for 2025 and 23 to 26% adjusted EBITDA for 2025 as well. And this is financial outlook Q4 2024 from Q4 2024. Okay, perfect. Let's keep going.
Free cash flow conversion, which we'll talk about in a minute, greater than 50%. So I'm gonna deeper dive into this, touching on a few things. First, we'll start with the volume bridge. Very similar to, I think the last time we presented this bridge was for 24, kind of at the end of 23. But as you know, we have great line of sight into the coming year, because a very material amount of what we're going to see in 2025 is from the business that we already signed and installed in 2024. When you look at the rest of the bridge, this is our typical Shift4 land and expand. You've heard it a few times over and over, but I will repeat it again. That is going to come from two places. One is, an ample backlog. Probably didn't spend as much time on it today, but we have a significant backlog of merchants that we have signed, but they have not yet installed. So again, lots of insight to that. And second is the funnel, right? The embedded volume, cross-sell and upsell opportunity is overflowing, to go after the volume that you see here. And from a spread perspective, I know we've talked a lot about kind of our spread stabilizing. We expect about 60 basis points of spread going into 2025. Organic growth, probably should have started there. Expect it to continue on a great trajectory and north of 20% as we look to 2025. I want to spend a minute on the adjusted free cash flow conversion because I know that we'll get some questions. Ahead of, I think we kind of talked about this last quarter, without the change of cash taxes and interest expense with our recent financing, our free cash flow conversion would be in excess of 60%. And when you think about the components of really just where is that cash flow expanding, it comes again from that discipline around expense management, and just better unit economics and flow through from gross profit. When you think about CapEx for Shift4, just remember that almost all of our CapEx, I think Luke did a great job outlining this, is tied to our growth. We do not deploy capital until we have acquired a customer. So the bulk of that CapEx is going to customers that we've already acquired. Okay, keep it moving here. Proven track record of deleveraging. I love this slide. I think, again, another one that kind of a picture speaks for itself. We feel incredibly proud and very focused because this is what cash flow generation allows for, right? Exiting the year, at 2.5 times, obviously sharing that we expect to be at the end of the year, even post Global Blue and the financing that we expect to do at 3.3 times net leverage. So you can count on this, again, high confidence in terms of our vantage point at this point, looking at that ahead. Okay, so now to roll out our midterm guidance. And the sitting on our hands case is kind of if we do nothing else.
This is when researching stocks gets juicy. You start to see what they're all right. So high teens plus. Sit on your hands. Okay, so this is their bear case, I guess. All right, bear case. You got revenue high teens. Bear case 3 years. Bear case 3-year revenue high teens, compound annual growth rates. Then you have the same for adjusted EBITDA. So okay, let's do EBITDA. EBITDA 3-year high teens as well, high teens plus. So maybe up in the 20s potentially for their sit on their hands case, bear case, and then a couple bits increase in their margin. So that's pretty good. 3-year revenue, high teens plus. Okay.
Else, excuse me. Sit on our hands case, which will never be the case because that would mean that we don't deploy another dollar of our free cash flow. But it really reflects the trajectory of our existing business ahead of Global Blue. So gross revenue less network fees, 3-year CAGR of high teens, and adjusted EBITDA margin, high teens plus. When you look at this margin expansion that we're expecting of the base business, it completely correlates to the synergies that we know are left to synergize over the next 12 to 18 months. So again, base business, sit on our hands, don't deploy additional capital. This would be our midterm guidance. Now layer in the impacts of Global Blue. Gross revenue less network fees and EBITDA both growing.
Okay, so sounds like this is probably more their base case here for 3 years. All right, so we got revenue growing at 25% plus. That's excellent. We love to see that. And then pretty much the same for EBITDA. Growing at 25% plus as well for the 3-year. Okay.
3-year CAGR, 25% plus. So Taylor just presented those numbers, layer those in, sit on our hands, plus Global Blue. And then finally, the most likely case.
Okay, I'm going to call this the bull case. But I will add in parentheses since they're saying the most likely that this is the most likely. They're sandbagging a little bit here. I mean, really, the most likely case should be your base case. I mean, they shouldn't have even said the sit on your hands case. But oh well. All right, so 30+% on revenue and adjusted EBITDA. Okay, that's pretty straightforward. 30% plus. Okay, and then EBITDA also 30% plus. So that's excellent. Okay, so this company is just chugging along, growing at 30% compound annual growth rate for revenues and their EBITDA profit. So that's very good. So we'll start to plot this out here in a minute. I probably will take this most likely case, and they're only saying this is a 3-year, but I'll probably plot it out to my 5-year because that's one of my key year milestones, and then we'll start to drop it off after that. But yeah.
Which is we will continue the Shift4 playbook, utilizing the free cash flow that we generate to do M&A consistent with our playbook, and that 3-year CAGR 30% plus and adjusted EBITDA 3-year CAGR 30% plus. So again, high confidence going into this midterm guide, and kind of excited that I was the one that got to present it.
I would wish they do
and
a
now
long-term
kind of
guide.
This is literally the money slide. aspirational but completely achievable, or I would not be presenting it today. And this really is our understanding of where the synergies are across the business, the automation, the AI, all of the ways that we know that we have room to continue to expand margins on top of synergizing the recent M&A that we've done. And really that puts us right on track exiting 2027 to generate $1 billion of free cash flow. Okay, I know it's short and sweet. I know it could be
That would be
you know what?
fantastic.
I just realized, I think I did touch on it. Okay, we'll leave it for Q&A if there is any. So with that, I'm gonna turn that back to to Jared. Thank you.
Our main man, Jared.
All right, we're almost through the day. Hopefully we've made this as interesting as a fintech.
Goodness gracious. I'm so happy I put it from 1x speed to 1.5x speed. I was so slow watching this yesterday at 1x speed, this 4-hour investor day. But you got to do this kind of stuff if you're really going to understand a company.
Analyst day can be. Okay, before kind of closing remarks, we do have one more thing. We'd like to announce a new board member. So Seth Delarry right here is joining the Shift4 board. He is the current Chief Growth Officer at Walmart. So welcome to the team. Thank you. Okay, so just to close this out here, my goal for the day was, as I started, to instill the same confidence I have in the ongoing trajectory of the business to all of you. So hopefully we were successful at that. But just to hammer home a couple points, let's start with 2024. We didn't spend an awful lot of time on that during the investor day itself, but we did during the earnings call. 2024, what did we do? We expanded all over the world really fast. By the way, that's really hard to do. And we did it. We added numerous countries and some really challenging markets. So basically from the time of our investor day 3.5 years ago in 2021, where we said, hey, we're entirely in the United States, but watch what we're capable of following a few signature merchants, we did it. We're in 6 continents right now. We won pretty much all the major ski resorts. We're thankful for Altera to join the to be one of our featured hospitality wins this quarter, but if you recall from previous ones was KSL, Vail Resorts. We're doing really great on there. We signed Icon Pass to our unified commerce platform as a $1 billion e-commerce customer. We're very proud of. We proved that SkyTab can hang with the best restaurants like Cipriani, which we announced this quarter, and Balthazar. And we ended the year with 26% organic revenue growth. Our backlog grew once again. We exceeded our midterm outlook with what I believe to be a quarter to spare, and we set the table really in all respects for the year ahead. So bringing us to the year ahead, 2025. Here's what I hope you learned about the journey ahead. So you should have gained confidence in all our products and their ability to just win in their own right. So number one in hospitality, super deep moat with all of these software integrations. You really need them all to deliver the kind of experience that complex hospitality merchants require. And now we're taking it all over the world, of which we've already got really strong results between Canada and Europe. You should have walked away knowing that we're number one in sports entertainment. We have lots to share there. Really awesome story that Anthony Perez told. Got me charged up, going from one to virtually a large portion of the industry in a very short period of time and conquering the 800-pound gorilla. We support, you should understand why we do it, by the way. There was a lot of great product slides of how we own the entire venue environment, not just pieces of it. And that's key when you understand why we win. It's not just the concessions or the mobile application or the suites. You know, it's the cashless checkout. Those type of cool experiences matter in a venue environment. Then you have ticketing, you have parking, you can understand why we win there. And now we're doing that all over the world. We've acknowledged, hey, we're number 2 in restaurants. We didn't get the benefit of concentrating on a single product for the last 15 years like others have, but we're doing great at it. We surpassed our 30,000 plus systems installation goal for 2024. We proved that we can use SkyTab in everything from the Irish pub to merchants that have hundreds of locations out there, and it's doing really well, including some of the most upmarket restaurants out there. And now we're doing that in multiple countries, Ireland, the UK, and soon it'll be in Australia and New Zealand. We introduced you to the unified commerce platform. So this is our one platform, one integration, serving card present, card not present merchants really all over the world. And we did it quietly. So it's not like we're announcing we're going to go begin to do this and just bear with us while we spend tens of millions of dollars. We did it already. And we got some really awesome merchants that are using it. So I hope you were actually paying attention to that demo, because that was really the new information, right? I mean, you saw the restaurant, hotel, and stadium demos, but you probably generally, we know they're either number 1 or number 2 in that space. But unified commerce was new. There was new information there. And that demo I thought was pretty wild, right? There were only probably two companies that would ever shown you something like that before, where a merchant logs into their portal, sees this really interesting geographic map and says, I want to start taking payments here now, and then activates it, runs a transaction, sees it shows up in the summary reporting. Like you're talking 2 companies, maybe now 3 with us in the world that are capable of doing that. And I thought that was pretty interesting. And now, for 4 hours or so later, I've certainly gotten feedback from some folks and people like, you really want to take on Adyen out there? I'd say, look, we're already doing okay. We have a lot of incredible merchants on that platform. Some we can't talk about anymore, but some are here. Altera, St. Jude's, great example. Rick Shadiak's here, CEO of St. Jude's. Great to see you, sir. There's billions in volume already flowing through that platform right now. And if we keep winning in that platform, it's incremental to the story you're already underwriting, right? So, and I think a lot of our investors and analysts were happy covering Shift4, knowing that we're going to do well with restaurants, hotels, and stadiums all over the world. So, if we do well here with this, it should be a lot of, and we find success in our unified commerce platform, and we certainly have a lot of shots on goal with it now, with a lot of fantastic luxury customers. That perhaps it's just further upside to what was already a really awesome story. But even not. We now have so much more air cover in all these various geographies, which is what Taylor was talking about. Look at the physical presence we have with personnel now in all these interesting countries around the world. That just makes it that much easier to go in and start selling restaurants, hotels, and stadiums like we were planning to do anyway. And again, I'd probably reinforce on unified commerce is it's already working. So if you remember very early on to some of the first few slides that I presented, you saw that volume diversification slide. Look at how big unified commerce has grown. That's not all just sports and entertainment. That's all the new verticals we went into since our analyst day in 2021, where we were at more or less zero. And look at what it's become right now. So that brings us to, you learned a little bit about our capital allocation strategy. Well, you already knew a fair amount about it previously, but you got to hear from Luke go into some more specifics, some more proof points. I'd probably go back to, one of the highlights was actually Anthony Perez's, CEO of VenueNext, acquired by Shift4 4 years ago, chooses to stick around. He obviously runs our unified commerce platform now, which is our new platform that we're going after luxury retail all over the world. But he told you how we had one stadium at the time of that transaction that we partnered with. How we had a town hall with their 12 or so employees at the time saying we were going to go after the $400 million, VC funded, like totally, reckless organization out there, the 800-pound gorilla, and we're going to beat him. And we did. We had tons of success and ultimately a really cool capitulation transaction. And I ask you to keep that in mind when you have questions about how much success we will or won't have pursuing this Global Blue opportunity. There's no one in this room like 3 years ago, and we just had the Raiders Stadium, would believe that we would have like virtually the entire market 3 years later. So I wouldn't discount the possibility of what we'll do in that transaction. So then Taylor talked about Global Blue, which again we think is an awesome company that we got a really great deal on. It was a really overlooked business, the larger of essentially two platforms, and as Taylor said, one of them's doing really well, the other not so much. It is a two-sided network, so they are serving 400,000 locations of luxury merchants, but they're also serving millions of consumers around the world, and that's increasingly becoming a more digitized experience, which I personally think there's going to be some interesting opportunities to monetize that in the future. It gives us the air cover to move into more countries to sell what we're really good at, restaurants, hotels, and stadiums, but it also gives us important capabilities like dynamic currency conversion, which we needed to serve hotels in general as we expand across the world. And it also comes with a cross-sell opportunity that now brings us up to about 1.4 trillion, which I guarantee you we will have some success with. You can definitely underwrite something more than zero. We're pretty good at this. If you give us 15% credit against that population without signing any net new customers, we double the volume of the business. That makes me feel pretty good when I'm moving on. And the reality is if you look at any of the past transactions where you had to underwrite some sort of a cross-sells for success, our batting average is way better than 15%. Which then you heard a little bit about how we work. So we have very mature processes at PMO. In our PMO operation, you got to hear from Josh talk about all the exciting stuff he did managing projects at Lockheed and weapons and really cool programs. And he said he was really excited for change coming into payments. And him and his team has been doing an outstanding job. You heard from Kim in HR. You heard about our mission control program, our internal systems refresh with AI to basically improve the efficiency and quality of our service, basically taking some of the no-fail operations you see in the space industry and bringing into fintech, which is especially important when you think about how all these payment rails that power payments all over the world and all the APMs, there's a lot of cobbled together spaghetti, and you want to centralize that in a no-fail environment. I think we're really on the right path to it. So what does this really all translate into? 2025 guidance that sets us up well for a really nice cadence, which even though I heard some people like, oh, it was a little lighter than expected, I literally got feedback emails from every one of you guys saying, dial it back. So we try to give you give the people what they want right up until they don't like it anymore. Alongside products that are either, which translates to alongside products that are either number one or number two in their various categories. We have an overflowing cross-sell funnel of 1.4 trillion, which we talked about. I guarantee you'll have some success in it. We now have beachhead in numerous countries and continents to sell the products and services that we've always been really good at. We gave you a sit on our hands case, 3-year growth case that is really better than I think everybody else more or less in fintech, but it's already obsolete because the pro forma case, which is sit on our hands plus Global Blue is a 25% CAGR across gross revenue, less network fees, and EBITDA. And then what you have, what I consider the more realistic case is we're just going to keep doing what we're doing, which is a continuation of 30+% gross revenue, less network fee, and EBITDA growth. And when we're done with it, and we're exiting the end of this 3-year outlook, and Taylor and the team have you guys all back here or some other cool location customer of ours, we should be declaring our $1 billion of free cash flow exiting this new outlook. So that's the recap. I wouldn't bet against the Shift4 team. I'm very confident. I hope you are as well. And with that, we will turn to Q&A.
This Q&A could be interesting. I think for the sake of time, however, I'm going to switch to this Q1 2025 Shift4 earnings call. First quarter 2025 results. Perfect. Before that I do that, though, I'm going to go grab some more water, and I'll be right back. All right. Switch back to this. We're going to go ahead and watch this. We're back on track now with our stock deep dive process. So we've already done that. We just watched the Investor Day. And now we already did Q4 2024 yesterday. So now we're going to be doing Q1 2025. And then we're going to start looking at revenue, gross profit, earnings trends, margin trends. We've already completed a lot of these things, but we're going to go ahead and start filling them out across our master stock list spreadsheet, and then we're going to actually run projections on Shift4 as an investment to see if it's a good investment or not compared to other investments that we could make. All right. So let's get into this earnings call webcast, and this is going to be interesting. So this should be, I'm going to pull this over here for privacy. Yes, this is going to be led by the new CEO. So this is going to be our first time. He didn't talk much in the Investor Day, so I'm excited to hear, him talk a bit more. See how he did the first quarter as the CEO. Obviously, Jared Isaacman is no longer the CEO, which we're very sad about, but all right, we got that all
Greetings. Welcome to the Shift4 First Quarter 2025 Earnings Conference Call. At this time, all participants are in listen-only mode. A question-and-answer session will follow the formal presentation. If anyone today should require operator assistance, please press *0 from your telephone keypad. As a reminder, this conference is being recorded. It's now my pleasure to introduce Tom McCrohan. Thank you, Tom. You may now begin your presentation.
Thank you, operator, and good morning, everyone, and welcome to Shift4's First Quarter 2025 Earnings Conference Call. With me on the call today are Taylor Lauber, our President and incoming CEO, and Nancy Disman, our Chief Financial Officer. This call is being webcast on the Investor Relations section of our website, which can be found at investors.shift4.com. Today's call is also being simulcast on X Spacers, formerly known as Twitter, which can be accessed through our corporate Twitter account at Shift4. Our quarterly shareholder letter, quarterly financial results, and other materials related to our quarterly results have all been posted to our IR website. Our call and earnings materials today include forward-looking statements. These statements are not guarantees of future performance, and our actual results could differ materially as a result of certain risks, uncertainties, and many important factors. Additional information concerning those factors can be found in our most recent reports on Forms 10-K and 10-Q, which you can find on the SEC's website in the Investor Relations section of our corporate website. For any non-GAAP financial information discussed on this call, the related GAAP measures and reconciliations are available in today's quarterly shareholder letter. With that, let me turn the call over to Taylor.
Thanks, Tom, and good morning, everyone. We had another busy quarter, and it was great to see many of you at our recent Investor Day event in February. This morning, I'll provide thoughts on our first quarter results, key priorities that give us confidence in the years ahead, and an update on our recently announced acquisition of Global Blue. I will then turn the call over to Nancy for a detailed review of our quarterly results and our upcoming guidance. Before providing the financial metrics, I wanted to provide some grounding on the growth drivers within the business, which are especially important during times of economic uncertainty. We have strong product offerings across several large markets and are generally number one in each, with the exception of restaurants where we have strong number two. We had world-class customers in each of these verticals, such as Aspen Hospitality, the Satai Hotels, Pittsburgh Pirates, Colorado Rockies, Formula One Miami Grand Prix, and the PGA Tour. We also refuse to leave our success to chance. As such, our M&A strategy has afforded us a massive collection of customers whereby we can cross-sell our services. The Boston Red Sox, Herbert Bakeries, and the Ace Hotel Toronto are just three examples of this strategy in action, although there are many more, and we've highlighted a few of them in our materials, which you can find on our website. Interestingly, though, these recent wins will matter more in the years ahead, as the largest contributor to our current performance is generally the wins of last year fully seasoning. Those of you who can recall Jared reading what seemed like a yellow page's worth of wins from last year's earnings calls are now seeing the fruits of that in our results. As such, we posted strong Q1 results that were largely in line with our expectations and are raising our full year 2025 guidance to reflect our confidence in our ability to execute. Some highlights. Our volumes increased 35% year over year to 45 billion. Quarterly volumes were in line with our expectations, with year-over-year growth modestly impacted by the timing of leap year and the Easter holiday. We witnessed stable volume trends across all of our end markets and continue to monitor trends closely in light of the recently implemented trade policies. It should come as no surprise that we never count on an improving economy to drive our success. Gross revenue less network fees increased 40% to $369 million. A combination of stable spreads and subscription and other revenue resulted in our net revenue growing faster than our volumes. We are unlocking significant value from our recent acquisitions, and I will provide some additional details on that topic in a few minutes. Adjusted EBITDA increased 38% to $169 million. We delivered 46% adjusted EBITDA margins, which were modestly above our guidance of 45%. Nancy will comment on our forward margin profile a bit later during the call. And lastly, we delivered adjusted EPS of $1.07 per share. We were pleased with these results and are very excited to execute on our priorities for the balance of the year. I think it's important to note that these priorities are not new, but rather a continuation of what has made us successful for the past 26 years.
Our first priority is to keep doing what's made us so successful in the first place. In the U.S., we are focused on adding new merchants while simultaneously expanding our share of wallet. In restaurants, we continue signing up new merchants onto our SkyTab offering and also introduce SkyTab Air, our latest handheld device that's going to be launching in the next few weeks. It's something we're quite proud of, and I'd encourage you all to take a look at our shareholder letter for some details on it. I gave a few examples of wins earlier, but the product is scaling nicely across a variety of environments. For example, we signed all U.S. locations of Nando's, a fast-growing quick-service chicken chain that is expanding quickly in North America with plans to reach over 500 U.S. locations over time. This is replicating its enormous success already in the United Kingdom and elsewhere. In hospitality, we continue to add net new hotels and resorts while simultaneously cross-selling our payments to hotels operating on our gateway. I mentioned Aspen Hospitality and the Satai hotels earlier, but there are dozens of examples, ranging from boutiques like the Nantucket Hotel to large resorts such as the Cooper in Charleston, South Carolina. In stadiums, we are keeping our eye on the ball, puck, etc., across all major professional leagues and are partnering with organizations beyond the 4 major sports leagues. To that end, and I mentioned this earlier, we've signed the Formula One Miami Grand Prix and the PGA Tour, but also the Red Rocks Amphitheater. Our second priority is unlocking synergies from acquisitions such as Revel, GiveX, and Eigen. We are already making progress across all of our recent deals, with each effectively following the Shift4 playbook to a T. Across just these 3 most recent acquisitions, we have already achieved more than $20 million in EBITDA synergies in the first quarter. Deals from many years ago also continue to bear fruit, as I cited in some of the cross-sells that I mentioned earlier. As a reminder, our playbook is focused on identifying a unique capability critical to the commerce experience, which we then bundle with our payment processing expertise. We are not buying a company simply to do the same thing as us and then drive cost synergies by removing overlaps. Instead, we unlock meaningful recurring payment revenue by bundling our own payment capabilities with the unique and scarce technology capability we now own. Once we own this new capability and the talent involved in building it, we are inherently more competitive and win more new business in addition to the embedded cross-sell. Some examples of this in action are Revel, which we acquired in June of last year. Revel already has a robust payments cross-sell funnel with over 7,000 locations going live on Shift4 Payments as of the Q1 close. Of note, many of these are chains, which was a segment of the restaurant market that was a unique strength of Revel. We have already incorporated many of these Revel capabilities into SkyTab, which make it naturally more competitive in enterprise. We have also integrated the product teams from Eigen into Shift4. As a reminder, Eigen is a payment gateway we acquired in November of last year with a presence in Canada and the United States. We have already cross-sold payments to approximately 100 large Eigen gateway-only customers and are making significant progress on combining the gateways into a single one and deleting the Eigen part. The talent that built Eigen now helps us execute on our platform roadmap much more quickly. It should come as no surprise that the gift and loyalty capabilities from GiveX are in the process of being fully integrated into SkyTab as our default offering. And we've cross-sold payments to approximately 100 GiveX merchants since we've officially launched our cross-sell efforts just in February. We will also delete a part as GiveX gift and loyalty capabilities were far superior to our native offerings. As a reminder, we acquired GiveX just a few months ago in November of last year. Last but not least is executing on our near-term strategy while also thinking about the future. By taking what has made us successful for 26 years and replicating it all over the world, we can set ourselves up for success for decades to come. As we shared at our recent Investor Day, we are currently operating in 6 continents, up from only 1 less than 2 years ago. We recently unlocked Latin America and are already in the process of signing marquee enterprise clients in that region. In Europe, where tightly bundled software plus payment solutions are less common, we are making tremendous progress signing up restaurants, particularly in the UK, Ireland, and Germany. Our momentum has picked up significantly this year, and we're now signing up over 1,000 restaurants a month internationally. These are the priorities that I believe will ultimately enable us to deliver on our financial commitments we made to you all and to drive meaningful, profitable growth over the medium term. Before turning the call over to Nancy, I thought I'd provide a quick update on Global Blue. For those of you that possibly missed our February announcement, Global Blue is a market-leading payment platform supporting tens of thousands of luxury brands worldwide, including Louis Vuitton, Hermes, Valentino, Fendi, Prada, Burberry, Cartier, and many, many more. Global Blue operates a 2-sided payment network with over 15 million consumers utilizing Global Blue's quick and seamless mobile app when purchasing luxury goods at over 400,000 retail stores around the world. When shopping abroad, consumers purchasing these luxury items are eligible for a VAT tax refund, which is facilitated by Global Blue. Global Blue also facilitates the option to convert purchases into the cardholder's home currency, which is something known as dynamic currency conversion. The Global Blue business is an exceptional standalone business. The luxury VAT tax refund industry has proven to be highly resilient, as affluent consumers wield substantial economic spending power, account for half of all consumer spending, and hold an estimated $1.3 trillion in excess savings. We have high confidence in unlocking $80 million of revenue synergies from this transaction by the end of 2027, primarily through bundling our embedded payment solution with Global Blue's VAT tax refund and dynamic currency conversion capabilities. We estimate the embedded payment cross-sell opportunity alone to be over $500 billion in volume. In addition, we continue to expect 2 of the world's largest fintech companies, Ant Financial and Tencent, to remain shareholders in the combined business, and both of these wallets providers have committed to collaborate with us on e-commerce opportunities around the world. We are on track for an early Q3 close subject to regulatory approvals. As I mentioned in my shareholder letter, we have a track record of growing volumes during the most challenging of economic times. Since the company was founded, we have successfully grown our payment volumes every year, including during COVID and the great financial crisis of 2008 and 2009. We have experienced 5 recessions in the past 26 years, and we have grown our payment volumes in every single one of them. I hope that by understanding our strategies that I just highlighted, it becomes obvious to you all that in many ways we welcome uncertainty. We thrive in times of uncertainty, and because it's our operating model, product lines, unit economics, and enormous cross-sell funnel all become more valuable when the future is uncertain. That's not to say we operate with rose-colored glasses, and in fact, it's exactly the opposite. We operate out of an abundance of caution and a mindset of paranoia. We are never complacent and constantly finding ways to evolve. With that, I'll turn the call over to Nancy, who will outline our 2025 financial guidance and key other stats for the quarter.
Yeah, that's our first time listening to Taylor. He sounds highly intelligent and very similar in his, kind of points that I would imagine Jared would make in this earnings call. So, and Jared worked with him very closely, from my understanding, for a long time. He had another position in the company before coming on as CEO. So I'm confident in his ability to run this company well. So that's good to know.
Nancy?
Thank you, Taylor. We delivered another quarter of consistent and solid results in line with our expectations, setting new first quarter records across all of our key performance indicators. Volume grew 35% year over year to $45 billion. Gross revenue less network fees grew 40% to $369 million, and adjusted EBITDA grew 38% to $169 billion. Our Q1 adjusted EBITDA margins were 46%. We expect our margins to march higher as the year unfolds, and we unlock synergies from last year's acquisitions. Excluding the drag from these recent acquisitions, adjusted EBITDA margins would have been 50%. We will also benefit from higher levels of operating leverage as the year progresses, and we add incremental payment volumes from cross-selling and working through our existing backlog. Our Q1 blended net spreads were 61 basis points, in line with our guidance for spreads to remain stable with 2024's exit rate. Importantly, spreads across our core business also remain stable, and we still expect full year 2025 spreads of approximately 60 basis points. Subscription and other revenue was $93 million in Q1, up 77% compared to the same period last year. The growth was once again driven by our success across SMB, SkyTab, and further penetration of the sports and entertainment vertical, as well as contribution from recently completed acquisitions. The sequential moderation from Q4 levels was as expected and due to ongoing deprecation of legacy revenue from recent acquisitions. Q1 organic gross revenue less network fee growth was in line with our expectations, and we are on track for 20% plus organic revenue growth for the full year. Our adjusted free cash flow in the quarter was $71 million, representing 42% adjusted free cash flow conversion. As a reminder, during Q1, we made our first cash interest payment of $37 million on the debt we issued last August. These cash interest payments will occur semi-annually in Q1 and Q3. For illustrative purposes, excluding this incremental interest payment, our adjusted free cash flow conversion rate for the quarter would have been 64%. We are on track to deliver over 50% adjusted FCF conversion for the full year. During the first quarter, we repurchased approximately 686,000 shares for $63 million, and month to date in April, we have deployed an additional $85 million of capital to repurchase approximately 1.1 million shares against our remaining available capacity. You can find a complete reconciliation of our share in the back of our earnings materials. GAAP net income for the first quarter was $20 million, and GAAP diluted EPS was 20 cents per share. Non-GAAP adjusted net income for the quarter was $99 million, or $1.07 per share on a fully diluted basis. Beginning this quarter, we are now adding back acquired intangible amortization to non-GAAP net income and EPS in line with our industry peers. Our total indebtedness now has a weighted average cost of 3.4%, and our net leverage at quarter end was approximately 2.4 times. We have a strong cash position with $1.2 billion of cash and cash equivalents as of March 31st, and we remain well positioned to pay down the $690 million of convertible debt maturing in December this year. Now turning to 2025 guidance. We are updating full year financial guidance and introducing Q2 guidance as follows. For the full year, we are raising gross revenue less network fees to between $1.66 billion and $1.73 billion, representing 23% to 28% growth. We are raising adjusted EBITDA between $840 and $865 million, representing 24% to 28% growth. For the second quarter, we expect gross revenue less network fees between $405 and $415 million, with adjusted EBITDA margins of approximately 50%. A few items to highlight as it pertains to our outlook for the rest of the year. As Taylor mentioned, we continue to see signs of a stable consumer. Spending trends in Q1 were largely in line with what we saw exiting 2024, with a slight deceleration largely attributable to leap year and other seasonal factors. Since mid last year, we have seen fairly stable trends in same-store sales, with some choppiness month to month within a very narrow band. We remain cautiously optimistic on the health of the consumer, but our guidance and outlook does not rely on any improvement or recovery from current market conditions. Reiterating what Taylor outlined, Shift4 has a proven track record of resiliency in uncertain times, and we are better equipped than ever to deliver strong results. With that, let me now turn the call back to Taylor. Taylor?
Thanks, Nancy. Before turning it over to the operator for Q&A, I thought I'd provide a few thoughts regarding the forthcoming CEO transition. We are eagerly awaiting the U.S. Senate to officially vote on Jared's nomination to head NASA, and assuming approval, the board will execute a CEO transition plan where Jared will step down as CEO and from the board, and the board will vote on my appointment.
Very interesting. So in this call, he's saying that he hasn't been appointed CEO yet. Jared Isaacman actually did not get the nomination. He was rug pulled by Trump. So the only thing I would think is he did get on the All In podcast, Jared Isaacman, and he said that he was going to let Taylor have his day as the CEO. So I still think Taylor's the CEO, but I mean when was this posted? I don't know when this presentation happened, so be interesting to know if the All In podcast happened after this. I think it did, because the All In podcast came out pretty recently. So I'm going to assume that Taylor Isaacman's still leaving as CEO.
You should all be aware that the Senate Ethics Committee did not require Jared to divest any of his Shift4 shares. Jared will remain the largest shareholder of Shift4, which was something we're really excited about. Once the Senate votes on Jared's NASA appointment, he will convert all of his B and C shares into Class A, relinquishing his super votes and owning approximately 25% of the outstanding Class A shares. Going forward, he'll have the same one share, one vote privileges as all the other shareholders. And with that, I'll turn it over to the operator for Q&A.
Thank you. We'll now be conducting a question and answer session. If you'd like to ask a question at this time, you may press star 1 from your telephone keypad, and a confirmation tone will indicate your line's in the question queue. You may press star 2 if you'd like to remove your question from the queue. For participants using speaker equipment, it may be necessary to pick up the handset before pressing the star keys. One moment, please, while we poll for questions. Thank you. And our first question is from the line of Raina Kumar with Oppenheimer. Please proceed with your question.
Good morning, Taylor and Nancy. Thanks for taking my question, and good results here. How would you describe the competitive environment in international markets that you're targeting? Seems like there's a lot of U.S.-based payment companies that are focused on the same thing. What do you think gives Shift4 an edge here?
Yeah, thanks, Raina, and it's a great question. I'll be honest, the international opportunity is something we identified as far back as kind of, 8 years ago. The phenomena we experience internationally is that it looks like the U.S. did, call it 15, 20 years ago. And what I mean by that is you've got kind of 3 different industries all evolving in parallel to one another without much convergence. And what I mean by that is you have software companies building software to support merchant environments. You have hardware companies to help create the fulfillment experience. And then you've got largely traditional banks fulfilling the payment experience. And none of them have done a lot to help these 3 things converge for the benefit of the merchant. Now, why we saw the opportunity is because it's exactly the opportunity that Jared and the team identified 20 years ago in the United States. That's when they created the Harbor Touch brand that bundled all these solutions together to make life easier for the merchant and eliminate multiple vendors. So I could give you a long history on some of the technical reasons it's taken us long to get here, but there's no excuse for them existing today. So it's not a surprise to us that if you have the right localized solutions, and that means like local settlement, accepting local payments methods, paired with good software, merchants are kind of clamoring for it. I think we gave the stat that about 1 in 4 of the merchants joining Shift4 today are coming from outside the U.S. And it's simply riding a wave that we saw 20 years ago in the United States. And to be frank, that's like only a handful of markets that we're actually addressing at the moment. The rest of the world, there's a long way to go in this regard.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Darren Peller with Wolfe Research. Please proceed with your questions.
Guys, nice results here. Can we just touch a little further on what you're seeing in the market more broadly into April, what you're seeing and what you're including in the assumptions for guidance, given the conviction you had around your guide here, just really passing through the beat. And then just remind us, same-store sales generally, I know you don't typically incorporate much in the way of same-store sales as part of your outlook for volume, but maybe just remind us, if you don't mind, the building blocks that give you the conviction in the outlook still, despite what's pretty uncertain macro times.
Yeah, sure. I'll start with kind of the themes that we're seeing, and then Nancy can talk to how that gets incorporated into our forward-looking views. But I think it's going to be relatively undramatic, which is that what we're seeing is more of the same. And by more of the same, I don't just mean kind of the beginning of this year continuing through. I mean like the last kind of 12 to 18 months have looked very consistent across our merchant segment. And that is to say you've had restaurants with very modest same-store sales compression, and I mean 1%, and it's usually bouncing between 1% and 0 for over a year now. You've got hotels that are generally bouncing somewhere between -1 and +1 or 2. And then you've got retail, which for us is a smaller segment of the business, but that varies a little bit all within that same bound. So the fact that even with recent sort of a lot of political rhetoric going on recently, we're not seeing meaningful change in consumer behavior, it suggests that it's stayed the course from our perspective. But you alluded to this. We generally don't spend a lot of time looking at same-store sales. We put some kind of information in our earnings materials because I think the capital markets get a little bit ahead of themselves in terms of trying to predict things like consumer spending, when in fact it's immensely varied across categories. Even within restaurants, consumers tend to typically go out, even in difficult times, they just spend a little less when doing so. So we put some data points in the resiliency we've traditionally seen in the business, which is that signups generally grow during tough times, even if consumer spending is a little bit modest. But we're not really seeing that. Nancy, if you want to kind of elaborate on how we kind of build the go-forward forecast with the current outlook.
Yeah, I think Taylor captured it well, and I picked it up in my prepared remarks. But the one point I would emphasize is the volume bridge that we've shared with you all at Investor Day. Very little impact in any given year is from what we sign in year, right? So we're not dependent on kind of new grabs in the market and a win rate. So I think that's like supplements what Taylor said. Like the in-year achievement of anything we sign this year is the smallest component of any revenue bridge that we do. And so much of our embedded volume and the annualization of what we already signed is going to achieve and really inform the forecast for the rest of the year. So again, any movement plus or minus 1% is really going to have almost no impact on our forecast going forward.
Right. And that's really helpful, guys. Just a quick follow-up would just be where we are on it was good to see the synergy update you guys provided, but to us, it's still more of a cross-sell revenue opportunity that really drives your idiosyncratic ability to grow so well in various macros. So where are you on, whether it's Vectron or it's Revel or others? Just give us a quick update, if you don't mind, on what you're seeing the most momentum with in terms of, obviously turning into revenue from what you obviously bought over the past year or two.
Yeah, sure. This is like choosing which child is my favorite. I'm not going to do it, but I will tell you that we are at varying degrees of kind of success in pulling the levers across each one, largely because of when we started to work with the asset. So Revel, we mentioned this in the prepared remarks, really, really nice cross-sell of payments into that existing software base. Phase 2 of that plan is that those merchants over time migrate to SkyTab, but it's been going really, really nicely, and the Revel team has been able to contribute meaningfully to our SkyTab development pipeline. As you can imagine, with kind of the number of customers we're winning, the number of geographies we're trying to tackle, and just simply the sheer breadth of customers we're trying to serve within restaurants, the talent is incredibly important to us. And it's not to be overlooked. I think, too often in our industry, people think about M&A as a talent reduction strategy. That is not how we approach M&A. We approach M&A with the purpose of kind of attracting good talent towards problems we were struggling to solve, before the transaction began. So Revel's doing really nicely in that regard. Vectron, I think you've probably seen kind of the green shoots of this inside of our international growth statistics that we've shared. It took quite a while to kind of get that business where we wanted it to be for some procedural reasons. We actually don't control the business today. We expect to very, very shortly, but it's contributing nicely to production today. And then IGAN, it's a playbook we knew extremely well, right? A $30 billion plus hospitality-oriented gateway, but we really didn't close on it until November. So all of them are kind of at like the right stage of their evolution, with maybe a modest concession being international has always taken longer than we expected, and we're very mindful of that when we try to set go-forward expectations. And it's not that the playbook is misunderstood. It's not that execution is challenged. It just takes longer to kind of get operational control and to affect the change we want to affect.
Right. All right. Thanks again, guys.
Our next question is from the line of Adam Frisch with Evercore ISI. Please proceed with your questions.
Thanks, guys. Good morning. Quick question for you, Taylor. Thanks for all the color here. On the 40% GRLNF growth in the quarter, what was organic and inorganic, the way you guys define it? And then I have one quick follow-up.
Yeah, sure. And so I think Nancy alluded to this. We generally don't provide quarter to quarter, mainly because acquisitions provide a lot of noise. There's acquired revenue we're parting ways with. There's synergized revenue coming in very quickly. I will say we set the expectation that for the year, organic revenue growth would be north of 20%. We are exactly on track with regard to that full year metric.
Okay, cool. And just one follow-up. Good to see some nice wins here in hotels and stadiums. I want to dig in a bit to the conversion figures on page 16 of the deck. New wins are on the right side of the page, and some relatively low but very early initial conversion numbers are in the middle. Does that imply that you're still selling under different brands while also consolidating the underlying backbook?
Generally, we don't sell under multiple brands, and I think I'd encourage folks to go back to Luke gave a really good kind of M&A walkthrough in our Investor Day to highlight the brands we acquired versus the brands we go to market with. So generally speaking, no, we don't go to market over multiple brands. In certain cases where the product is well entrenched and we don't have those capabilities, like a Vectron in Germany, we are not selling SkyTab in Germany today. We're selling the Vectron product and hope to be able to introduce SkyTab over time. So no, generally speaking, it's our payments bundled with, it's either SkyTab, it's either our payments platform, or it's our stadium software that any of acquired merchants are being converted into when we buy the business. And I wouldn't sort of look at each one of those numbers as homogeneous, right? So whether it's a Revel customer being converted over, or a GiveX customer, or an IGAN customer, they're all very different in terms of size of merchant and the number of dollars and effective spread you get on all of them. So we're very pleased with the pace of progress we made across all of them. I don't want to set the tone that we think this is kind of too slow or too fast. It feels all very adequate to us.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was asking, because the presentation at the Analyst Day was one thing, and then I saw all these marquee wins on the right, which was a little bit, I just wanted to square that. So it seems like initially you're still selling under those brands, but the goal longer term is to consolidate everything so you don't have to do that, and then it makes the conversion easier. Is that the right playbook to think about?
So in most cases, it's actually go after the existing customer base. So it's not even a selling against a brand. It's bundling payment processing within the customer base that's been acquired. When those sales teams are going and finding new customers, they introduce exclusively Shift4 products. But again, it's not lost on us that the quickest and most immediate opportunity inside of an acquired business is generally the tens or hundreds of thousands of customers that are using just one piece of the payment solution, and we can offer the rest.
Okay. All right. Thanks. I'll take this offline so I save time for other guys to ask questions. Thanks, guys. See you in a bit.
Great.
The next questions come from the line of Timothy Chiodo with UBS. Please proceed with your questions.
Great. Thank you very much. I wanted to touch on the backlog disclosure of the $35 billion. That's up from the Q3 earnings that was a $33 billion number. I want to talk a little bit about what's implied in the guidance in terms of the in-year volumes that will come out of that. So I just wanted to see if our logic was accurate. We think about that $35 billion as most of it able to be implemented this year. Maybe not all, because some of it requires waiting for a current contract to expire, maybe more on the ticketing side. But if you were roughly able to take maybe 25 to 30 billion of that and have it implemented this year, and you think about a mid-year convention, you can pretty quickly get to sort of a low to mid-teens billions of volume contribution for the in-year fiscal year 2025. Is that a rough way to think about it, or is there anything that you would guide us to, maybe higher or lower, any other nuance to call out? Thanks.
Yeah, no, I think that's the right way to think about it. Generally speaking, if you're in our backlog, you either have been installed and we're waiting for the annualization impact, or you are highly likely to be installed over the course of the next 12 months. It's the rare exception, although we've had some success in this regard, of the multi-billion-dollar enterprise that takes kind of longer than, I call it, 9-ish months to fully implement. Although we have named a few of those in the last few quarters. But yes, I think that number is a number we have confidence coming in, largely throughout the year. Although keep in mind, those customers still have yet to annualize the next year, right? So we still expect kind of the lion's share of an implementation this year to annualize in the following year, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Taylor. Yeah, it makes a ton of sense. And the minor follow-up is it fair to assume that ticketing is a meaningful portion of that $35 billion, or if you could just put some context around some of the categories in there?
I don't think it's a disproportionate portion by any stretch of the imagination. I think if you look at the past kind of handful of quarters worth of enterprise wins, you've got more than a few that are multi-billion dollars just themselves. We obviously have one ticketing. This will be a big year for seasonalizing ticketing, that's for sure, because we've activated a lot of ticketing customers in the last year. We had the contribution of appetized customers, and those customers are seasoning and will give us a full year in 25. But I wouldn't say it's a disproportionate amount of the backlog.
Thanks. Help a ton. Thanks, Taylor.
The next questions are from the line of Jason Kupferberg with Bank of America. Please proceed with your questions.
Hey, this is mostly trying on for Jason. Thanks for taking my question. I wanted to ask about international as well. I know it's still kind of early days, but can you provide any color on the current revenue split between U.S. and international, and where you see that mix evolving by the end of the year? And also, just given the number of countries you're in now, which market outside of the U.S. is your largest in terms of revenue contribution? Thanks.
Yeah, sure. I know we have some disclosures around international revenue contribution, which is largely largely comes in the form of e-commerce business that is seasoned for a little bit, plus all these sites we're adding. I'll say, and I made this comment in my prepared remarks, the contribution of merchants added in year tends to be less significant because they give you, by definition, on average, about half a year's worth of revenue. So we're not expecting a meaningful contribution, although we do think this is a meaningful priority for the business, so that 3 to 5 years from now, we've sufficiently kind of planted the flags to capitalize on this software plus payments convergence that's going on in the rest of the world. There's kind of two flavors it's taking on at the moment. There's enterprise customers that we're enabling in lots of different geographies. I mentioned this stat recently, but I love to repeat it because I think it just speaks to the speed within which we can operate when we have conviction at Shift4. We were in one country like 18 to 20 months ago, and now we're facilitating payments in over 50 for certain customers. That's one element, enterprise customer enablement all over the world. And then the other is SMB product plus software plus payments bundling that we're delivering in a handful of markets that we think are really ripe for that, and expanding the markets much more methodically. We have a joke called beer drinking countries before wine drinking, but I think it helps allude to the markets we're operating in kind of an elegant way, which is like UK, Ireland, and Germany are all really strong for us at the moment. And then we expect to expand into those wine drinking countries, Italy, Spain, France, when products are better localized for them.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Our next question is from the line of Andrew Hart with BTIG. Please proceed with your question.
Hey, thanks for the question, and nice results. Taylor, it's great to hear how consumer spending is holding up okay. I guess, can you talk to us a bit about how growth is balanced between net new and cross-sell? But then, I guess if we think about a scenario where macro does become a bit more challenged, how much harder can you press on the cross-sell funnel, thinking about kind of a stick versus carrot approach here?
Yeah, sure. I'd love to tell you that there's like a scale we have in the back office, and that we weight it according to net new wins or cross-sell when it's most important for us. The reality is it just simply doesn't work that way. M&A tends to give us a very quick access to lots of customers that, in all honesty, would likely not answer the phone. If a payments company or a software company were calling them with a solution, they'd likely just say, hey, we're content, and there's no reason to look at this right now. So M&A gives us access to a wide swath of customers that is incredibly valuable at all times. It also gives us capabilities that, when bundled tightly and we get to delete all these parts and deliver a single cohesive solution, makes us more competitive on a net new basis. I would say in the most normal of times, meaning modest economic growth, not a ton of uncertainty, you tend to have a mix of about half and half, where lots of customers are joining us off the street, but there's also this cross-sell. When times get tough, people answer the phone far less frequently, and we try to give evidence to this on a resiliency page we put in our earnings materials, and the cross-sell becomes invaluable. These customers are only going to listen to the vendors they're already working with. They're actively looking for ways to consolidate, make life simpler, save money, etc. So again, I want to be very specific. We are not predicting the economic environment ahead. We feel quite content with our ability to operate in a variety of economic environments, including those that are less rosy from a consumer spending standpoint. It's that cross-sell funnel that, to your point, does become more valuable when times get tough, but it contributes, as do net new wins, very consistently when times are less tough.
That's helpful, thanks. And then nice to hear the commentary on spreads expect to be consistent around 60 basis points for the year. I guess if you look at the chart on page 6, it looks like there's actually some expansion in the restaurant vertical. I guess, is that related to SkyTab success, or any details you can share there?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of everything. We've got SkyTab success, we've got just the mix based on size of merchants, which will always blend into that spread, and really a lot of stability around that legacy base that we keep talking about. So I think it's really the combination of all three that has allowed us to kind of maintain and inch up spreads in that category.
Thanks so much, and nice results again.
Thank you.
Our next question is from the line of Andrew Jeffrey with William Blair. Please proceed with your questions.
I appreciate you taking the question today. Taylor, I wanted to see if we could drill down a little bit on Global Blue, recognizing that the deal hasn't closed. I guess a couple of questions. One, one of the things we've heard from investors is just questions around sort of the goodness of fit, the existing business, as well as your confidence in the ability to cross-sell into that big $500+ billion or captive volume base. And more pointedly, perhaps the $80 million in run rate synergies by 27 feels like it's related to or assumes a relatively low proportion or percentage of that addressable volume is monetized. Could you talk about both of those things?
Yeah, sure. And I can understand kind of the juxtaposition there and the questions it raises among investors. Maybe just to help clarify, the set of capabilities that Global Blue possesses are extremely rare for the merchant verticals they serve, and they're very valuable. And so we see a tremendous opportunity in owning that set of capabilities, and again, having just a much wider offering with a lot of components that very few people possess, being able to deliver it into merchant categories. With that being said, it is a phenomenal standalone business, and we actually don't need to count on much in the way of revenue synergies for it to be an incredible pro forma contributor to Shift4. So what we delivered to the street in terms of expectations are you can actually you can forecast a modest degree of deceleration in their core business and replace that with incredibly modest cross-sell synergies and still feel really good about the combined business. So those are kind of the facts, right? You can feel good about our ability to execute against this business and that the capabilities are exceptionally rare, and the merchants they serve would highly unlikely ever answer the phone if someone called them to try to approach them with a net new solution, and now we have this incredible foot in the door. That's really, really valuable. It also underpins all of our international expansion. I would think maybe the subtext to all of this is we wouldn't deploy the kind of capital we did, which is the largest transaction in our history, without having incredibly high conviction that we can do better than that set of circumstances that I laid out. So I think you should look at the dollars we deployed as kind of our conviction in the theme, and you should look at the expectations we set financially as even a really modest to poor execution against our game plan yields a pretty damn good result.
Okay, and just specifically on the revenue synergies, any implications for sort of the percent of Global Blue volume that you're converting, or how do you come to that number, I guess, might be the...
Yeah, sure. So we segmented their customer base, and we basically took the largest customers and said, assume we win less than 10% across that merchant population, and in some cases, less than 4 or 3%. In other cases, we said, like their SMB population, we think we can do, a third very, very comfortably, and that's still a modest expectation. So hopefully, you're calibrating. We've traditionally done a really good job of cross-selling into these businesses. We're not trying to set an expectation for ourselves inside of this. We're simply saying below average execution against the Shift4 playbook against this world-class base of customers yields a result like 80 million, and that could even account for some softness in luxury retail, which we have no reason to believe. We just like to be conservative in that regard. So again, very modest conversion expectations across that base set to the street, but I think the dollars deployed means that we think we can do better than that.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Our next question is from the line of Andrew Bosch with Wells Fargo. Please proceed with your question.
Hey, thanks for taking the question, and nice set of results here. Just wanted to double-click on the software and other revenue line. It downticked slightly in the first quarter relative to the fourth quarter. I'd assume some of that is attributable to deleting the parts, but if you can give us a sense on where that line kind of trends through the remainder of this year would be super helpful.
Sure, and you really hit on it in your question. When you look at kind of that decel, it is from blowing up the legacy models. And from a guidance perspective, to give you some idea, we will still see growth, as the year goes on, but it will be decelerating if our plans kind of hold with blowing up the legacy models. We're definitely going in on some of these new deals with a little bit more of the stick approach than it took us on a gateway. So I would say that's what you should expect over the course of this year if everything trends the way that we anticipate.
Got it. And then just my follow-up would be on the EBITDA side. Getting some questions this morning, is it the right idea to tick up the guidance amid the macro, albeit, your ability to navigate the macros is obviously better than most, but maybe you can just give us a sense on what manifested in the quarter to kind of give you that added confidence.
Yeah, sure. I would say the quarter played out, largely within our own expectations. And, despite kind of the ton of noise we're hearing on a macroeconomic basis, we're seeing very little impact to consumer spending. So it would seem imprudent not to kind of continue to forecast the business on the pace that we have. And that's not to say we haven't kind of thought through the impact of tariffs and we haven't thought through the...
All right, I'm going to stop it here. A lot of this is pretty reiterated stuff from the Investor Day. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the fun part, which is starting to model out what we think this is actually going to be growing at. So turning your knowledge into numbers of my SOP for stock deep diving. So we're going to need to go into this stock master list. I'm going to pull this on this half, pull this on this half. All right, and we are doing Shift4 payments. All right, so what's the story for Shift4? Expanding payment processor, expanding globally. Payment processor, currency conversion, So the story, this is not the synopsis. So synopsis, this is more the synopsis is. Put that in there. But in terms of story, like, oh shoot, messed up that. What could this become? This could become the #1 global payment company. Like, pretty much absolutely necessary for restaurants. #1 restaurant hospitality partner, because they're going to do a lot more than just payment processing. They're going to do software. You know, there could be a potential here. And again, the point of the story column is to spin a story of the future where this company is building, and basically it'd be like an AI financial management. I hate that there's no freaking autocorrect in this. My spelling is so bad. I need to work on that. Want AI financial management at the front. So, I mean, the story here could be that this company just becomes like the premier financial management for businesses. You know, you take Shift4 and it's basically your AI accountant, because they're expanding in tax provisions. It's your AI insights to your business, like where should I spend more to grow revenues, all that kind of stuff. If they can offer something like a suite of products like that are, you know, enabled by artificial intelligence, like this could be massive. Okay, but synopsis, they're expanding globally, expanding global payment processor, currency conversion, tax. We can probably just take the Yahoo Finance one. I'm going to open that up because I actually really like their synopsis. Just give me 1 second here to open up Yahoo Finance. We read that yesterday. I highly recommend, if you're interested in investing in this company, to go to Yahoo Finance and read their description, because it is a very thorough description. Talks about all their payments and products and all that kind of stuff. So, company's mission. I don't know if they have a mission statement. Let's see. Let's go to Shift4 Payments mission statement. Let's see if they have that. To empower our partners and customers with complete payment solutions featuring the most secure, reliable, and fastest payment network available, backed by best-in-class technology and support. Now that's a pretty good summary of what they do for sure. So we talked about their products. They have SkyTab, POS. They have Lighthouse, which is the business insights, which has some AI insights. So let's see, customer management. We should add a little bit more information. AI financial insights. I mean, that could be really big in the future. Again, if these insights that they're able to give to their restaurant customers are really valuable, restaurant industry is really tough. So if they can differentiate their product, like, you know, 10% more restaurants succeed if they use Shift4 payments because of our, you know, Lighthouse product. That could be a massive, and a small incremental improvement like that could easily push them from #2 in the restaurant payment for payments. Excuse me. It could push them from payment processing provider #2 for restaurants to #1, like super easy. Shift4 Shop. I think this is called their unified commerce platform now. So unified commerce. So this is probably what that person, Shift4 Shop. Please help me, Shift4 Shop. Someone commented way earlier. I don't know what they're talking about though. Their e-com platform. Yeah. Onboarding, underwriting, and so much more. Yeah, so we got a pretty good understanding. They also have crypto payments. I don't know what that's called. They also have charity payments. This is something they recently acquired. But I'm guessing these make up a pretty small part of their business. So far it's SkyTab, and SkyTab Venue is their SkyTab for stadiums. So those are the products they offer, which honestly is really good. And these products have so many features. So their kind of model for expanding their product features is just through M&A, which I think is actually brilliant. Instead of making the product feature that you want from scratch, you just find the best company that already exists that has that feature. You buy it, you integrate it, and you just add it to your software that you already provide to your payment providers. This is like, in my mind, this is the Google business model. So, whenever there's a new company that offers a new kind of feature or product, Google just M&As maybe like the number 2 or the number 1 in that space, and they add it to the Google Workspace suite. So it's a genius way to do that, and obviously Google is the most profitable company in the world. So in terms of a moat, it's just, let's see, I need to research the competitors. I'm not going to do that today, but they have an all-in-one platform reducing, they said 6 to 10 vendors on average to just one. So that's a huge moat. Let's see, they have their product improvement flywheel, which is when they get a new customer, they have some kind of issue, they come out, they fix that customer's issue, whether that be a new currency, a new market they want to access, a new integration with another piece of software that they have. They add that feature to Shift4's SkyTab product or their commerce products, their e-commerce product, and then that improves the product. Their improved product attracts more customers. Their more customers have a new issue that Shift4 needs to add the feature for, and then he spins up that way. So product improvement flywheel. They had another flywheel. Let me look back at my notes. I forget what this other flywheel was. It was a decent flywheel as well. Let me see, flywheel. So this is what I was talking about, the product feature flywheel. Every new customer adds new integrations that Shift4 gets to solve, continue to make Shift4 offerings more competitive, meaning more customer acquisitions, meaning new integrations needed. Okay, where else did I talk about flywheel? Yeah, we already talked about that. Trying to eliminate service calls, which means more problems being solved for customers, better customer value, product improvement flywheel. So they have two kind of versions of this product improvement flywheel, which is really good. And then this is the other, a learning flywheel. This is for their, let's see, management in the trenches, building with employees, a learning flywheel for workflows, etc. All M&A becomes part of Shift4 team. They don't become siloed. Okay, I thought that other flywheel was a bit different than that, but they do have good teams. They do have good team models, flat management, so you do have the managers in the trenches. When they M&A new companies, they don't keep them separate from the operations of the core Shift4 products. They integrate those features, those employees into the teams that are already working on the core Shift4 products. So that's a really big deal. Business model. They offer payment products, then cross-sell software. They add new features and employees, which is really interesting. They actually hire generally through M&A. They get a team, a really good team, building some new product that Shift4 wants to offer. They take those employees, they integrate them into the company, and now you don't have to hire new employees to build that product. You just get the team from the other company. Employees, through M&A. And they expand through new markets, add new features. I should add markets here too. Markets, features through M&A. It's actually a really good flywheel, and if you can do that well, I mean, that's kind of a moat too. They do, let's see, do M&A well. That's a huge moat. Most companies suck at mergers and acquisitions. They buy a new company, it's in a field that they don't know how to do, and they just fumble the ball. It destroys their margins. It destroys, their operational efficiency. So being able to do M&A well is definitely a moat. So founder CEO's background. I don't know much about Jared Isaacman. I think he was a pilot. He is no longer the CEO. He was the founder. But importantly, he still owns something like 25% of shares. So that is a big thing you want to see. But Taylor, I'm not sure what his last name is. Let's see. Shift4 CEO. Taylor Louder. Something like that. We'll go with it. I want to look more into him. What is his history? What did he do? Shift4 Payments. Is he a doctor? D. Taylor Louder. CEO. He worked at COO. Chief Operational Officer at Blackstone. That's pretty impressive. Executive Relationship Manager at Merrill Lynch. Director of Technology at some real estate company. Project Manager at a bank. Yeah, I mean, he has some good experience. He worked at another position in Shift4, I believe, unless he was hired directly on to become the CEO. Not positive. Present June. Yeah, so I think there should be another, because he has not only worked at Shift4 for a month. He's been working there for longer than a month. So it does not have his previous position at Shift4 on this list. But let's see. Founder owns 25% share. He is no longer at the company. Taylor Louder, COO at Blackstone. That's what that said, right? I'm going to double check that. Yeah, COO, Chief Operational Officer and Portfolio Manager at Blackstone for 8 years. Yeah, he did some other things. For 8 years, hand-picked by Jared to become new CEO. Jared still involved at the company, and he is the #1 shareholder. So this is really important. You want to know, founder-run companies typically have a lot longer vision towards the future. The founder has left at this point, which isn't really what you want to see, but knowing that he's still a massive shareholder, I believe he may still be on the board. I'm not positive on that, but his incentives are still aligned with yours as a shareholder. So I personally don't own Shift4. Obviously, this is just to look into it, but okay. What's hype? This is a fast grower. They're growing at 20% plus, so that's actually really, really impressive. Let's see, buy thesis. If I had to put a buy thesis, what would it be? Let's see. I would say they're aggressively expanding markets and product features. They are #1 in most of their markets already, and they are urgently trying to become #1 in markets they are currently. And this is mostly talking about the restaurant industry right now. They're #2 and they're wanting to become #1. And I think, based off of how management sounds, I haven't listened to anything about the competition yet. They have a good chance of becoming the #1 in restaurants, especially if they can get this Lighthouse product really well. Like I was saying, if they're able to add tons of value to restaurants that already struggle as businesses, they're going to take the whole restaurant industry for sure. So no, that's really good to know. I'm not going to fill out all of this stuff right now. What I'm going to do is we're going to run our projection model. So, all right, I need to open up. I already have it here. Perfect. We need to get this up. Come on. There we go. Need to pull this over though. Okay. So we're going to need to calculate a few things here. Shift4. So I'm going to make sure that all of these are correct. This should be updated automatically from the New York Stock Exchange. So their current market cap is $8.5 billion. Let us go look at their financials. The balance sheet. All right, total assets as of annually. Here we go, quarterly. 3/31/2020. I'm just gonna go look at their balance sheet directly. Q1 2025. Shift4. I'll go to the shareholder letter, and this should have all of the information we're looking for. We can start to plot all of these data points out and then actually run our projections in terms of what we think Shift4 is going to look like. So there they are, celebrating their new. They partnered for the Miami F1 Grand Prix, so that's pretty cool. We want to look at your balance sheet. Come on, Shift4. Constantly making new partners, which is very, very cool. Yeah, this is insane how much they're expanding. And I think through their Global Blue acquisition, they're going to be in China, which I thought yesterday was unlikely, but it seems like they are expanding even to China. So, all right. So balance sheet, this is perfect. Okay. Condensed balance sheet, assets, total current assets. This is so different than what total assets in thousands. It's saying they have 5 billion. I'm confused. Oh no, that's right. And then the enterprise value. Total assets. This is so different. I'm trying to wrap my head around this. Current assets, cash equivalents in millions. So this is 1.16 billion. Oh, here we go. Looking at the wrong line. So yeah, okay, perfect. Total assets, double check total liabilities, March 25th. Okay, so this is a little outdated, so they have a little less than what I have recorded here. They have 50037, and this is in millions, so 5 billion, 3,700,000. Okay, perfect. So that's the total assets. Let's update the liabilities now. So that's gone down as well, which is we like to see. Then this is 39877000123. Okay, and that puts the enterprise value at $7.4 billion of enterprise value, the market cap of $8.5 billion. Perfect. I don't know if we need to update any of these things here. We'll start running our projections, and then we'll go from there, make sure everything checks out. Remember, so basically with this, I'm calculating our ROI in 20 years. Alrighty, so this revenue in 1 year is based off of analyst expectations, which is recorded over analysts' 1 year growth rate, 21%. So that's definitely wrong. They have been guiding, or down here for guidance. So they guided a CAGR of 30% compound annual growth rate for the next 3 years. So I think we should definitely at least assume that. And that was their base case, really. I'm gonna double check, make sure the cell is referencing the right cell here. Okay, perfect. Not the analysts. So, okay, perfect. So 1 year from Q1. So Q1 2026, we expect them to have $4.5 billion in revenue. We're going to open a compound interest calculator. So we're going to now calculate based on management's 3-year guidance of 30% rev growth. We think they got pretty likely that will be the case. Okay, so initial investment, I think that's going to be too big of a number. So 400,000 million billion. We'll just take off the zeros. So we'll say 4 million, 512, 950. And we're going to calculate this from year 1 to year 5. So we need 4 more years. This is years out. So yeah. So they are guiding that for the 2 years after this revenue number that they will continue to grow at 30% plus. It's still to be seen with new management, with Taylor taking over the company, if he's going to be able to execute as well as Jarek Isaacman has been executing. I do take their short-term, their 3-year guidance at face value, but we're going a little bit past this. So I mean, they're super dependent on M&A, which I think is a really good growth strategy. I'm gonna be a little bit conservative. I'm gonna say, well, let's do the 2 years. So this will get us to where guidance from management ends. So 7,626,855, and then we need to do 2 more years, and we're going to drop it down from 30 to 25%. All right, so we're going to say their 5-year out is 11,619,960,000. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 100,000 million billion. Okay, so this is taking management's guidance till 2027 and then dropping growth from 30% plus down to 25% from. Is there a Discord where you can share this spreadsheet? I'm not exactly sure what the plan is with this spreadsheet. Sorry, I don't know how long ago you put that comment. I don't know if there's a plan currently to share this spreadsheet. I think in the future we probably will start a Discord. I don't know exactly what the plan for all of that is. This spreadsheet isn't available at the moment, but I think there might be a decent chance we make it available in the future. My recommendation, surprise, surprise, will be to subscribe and follow along, and we'll definitely make an announcement when we make these kind of things public. So, yeah. All right. So revenue from 10 to 20 years. I want to look at macro trends here. I think macro trends is going to give us good insight at kind of their revenue growth. Maybe dropping it down to revenue and profit. So we want this year over year. That's crazy. When they first IPO'd, growing at 150%. But they've definitely been decreasing their revenue growth, but they're pretty consistent with it. That's not a great number here. Q1 2025 dropping down to 20% year over year quarterly growth. But let's see, can we change this to annualized? Just because this is quarterly. Yeah, 30%. I mean, I definitely believe management's. Yeah, sorry, John, it's not currently available, but I'll definitely talk to Jake about it, and it is potentially something we can get to you guys, maybe just as like a downloadable version or something. Yeah, if they're already hitting 20% year over year quarters, think 25% is pretty safe from 2027 for the next 2 years out 5 years, but I'm gonna say they're gonna drop all the way down to maybe the high teens from year 5 to 10. This is pretty speculative. See, this is another thing that's tough with like this kind of company that doesn't give you long-term revenue growth. Like when you're a 20-year investor, it's like it's a bit speculative, right? So you're going to take basically past performance, you're going to put a conservative metric on it that's basically your best guess, and then you're going to run that out 20 years. It's definitely pretty speculative, but it allows you at least get a number in terms of confidence, with a varying degree of confidence of where you think the company will be at in 20 years. And that allows you to give some kind of comparison between companies. So especially if you're the one running all the metrics, so you're being the same amount of conservative based off of how certain you are in the company. Like I can't see this company doing anything less than double-digit growth. So they have not done a single year under double-digit growth since their IPO or since the company even began. So I think dropping them down to high teens growth might be a little bit like too hard on them in just 5 years, but because they have the opportunity, like they have so many new markets they're going into, like they're just expanding outside of the US for really the first time. Like in the last 4 years they've gone from just the US to like 70 plus countries. With their growth strategy of M&A, like they have the ability to grow into a ton of new verticals very, very quickly because they don't have to develop the product in that vertical themselves. They just find the leader in that vertical and boom, they buy them. They get all the top talent because they acquire that team. And then they can cross-sell like crazy. So all of that company's customers are still there. So I think high teens growth from year 5 to year 10 is definitely possible, and honestly pretty likely if they're putting up 30% like year-over-year growth currently. So I'm going to run this at 18%. Let's throw this at 12, which is their revenue in year 5. And we're going to compound this over 5 more years. So probably be about 27 billion in revenue. And again, this the degree of certainty is going down greatly as we get further and further out. 27 billion, million, thousand, hundred. So let's say revenue growth from year 5 to year 10 at a 18% compound annual growth rate. Yeah, this is probably too conservative because I don't think they're going to be at 18%, let's say year 6. If they're growing 30% now, we're saying over the span of like 3 years, so in 3 years, that third year they throw out a 30% CAGR growth, 30% year over year growth, and then we're saying year 6, or no, year 4 and 5 they drop from 30 to 25, and then year 6 they drop down to 18%, revenue growth rate. So I don't see that being very likely. Companies typically don't decelerate their growth rate that fast unless maybe Taylor. So that is definitely a risk because Taylor is an untested CEO. Like we don't have Isaacman at the helm anymore, so definitely makes me less certain. But because this is speculative, I am trying to be conservative. So year 10 to year 20, I'm going to say this at 10%. I mean, we put 10% a bunch, as you can see. The company has never not put up double-digit year-over-year growth, so I'm just going to assume that they're going to continue to put, double-digit year-over-year growth. Growth 10 to 20. And again, this is super high unlikely. So we're saying in 10 years, year 10, they're going to do 18% year-over-year growth, and then year 11, they're going to drop down to 10% year-over-year growth. So this is, in my opinion, this is probably being a bit too conservative, but we're going to run it, see where we come out. We can fiddle with all these things a bit later. This is the thing about models. I mean, unless the company like themselves are giving out guidance and you can like take it for what it is. It's a bit of an art, not so much a science. It's about how convicted you are in the company and their ability to execute. You know what? I'm going to do a little higher. I'm going to say 12%. Okay. 27 billion revenue year 10, compounding over 10 years from year 10 to 20 at a 12% compounded annual growth rate. So we're going to say they're going to get to 83 billion, 860 million in year 20. So 2045. So, okay. Profit margin. Let's look at their profit margin now. Put some margins on this. So this is kind of how we do it. Our model is we model out what we think revenue growth is going to look like, and then we slap, you know, the profit margin, and that will give you earnings, right? So revenue times net margin, profit margin percentage will give you your earnings, and then you can put some kind of earnings multiple on that to get market cap, and then you can compare current market cap to future market cap, and that will kind of give you how many times, like how many X's you'll get. So, you know, 2X means every dollar you put in will double, so on and so forth. So, okay, let's look at net margin, 6.51%. Okay, so I don't know if this number is a little outdated. This is referencing another cell. Let me find that real quick and update that. CL. Okay, so this needs to be updated. Their Q1 2025 profit margin was 6.51%. Okay, so we're calculating that ourselves based on earnings, but I'm guessing these earnings are out of date. I'm just going to plug this in manually. 6.51. 6.51. Ooh, I don't know how that happened. Percent. Okay, cool. So the great thing about this business is not only are they growing revenue at a really good rate, they're actually growing margin as well. And they gave a margin, so they think they're going to expand margin by 300 basis points. So that's 3%. They're saying they're going to get up to 9% profit margin. So that would be pretty incredible based on, this is management's guidance. I'm gonna make some spelling mistakes. Just ignore it. I'm too reliant on spell correct. All right. Let's look at the trends here. So proven track record. I don't know. Is this their? This is something else. Okay. Let's look at macro trends. So their margin has been going up and to the right for a long time, and they're predicting it's going to continue that track. So. Unfortunately, I don't know how to project out margin beyond what the management is predicting. If they're able to bring in some AI efficiency on top of this, like operational efficiency, that would be pretty incredible. And you could definitely see margins continue to expand more than this. But without them really giving too much, they didn't really share much in their investor day about how they're integrating AI into the business. They haven't talked about it in either of the last two earnings reports. So I think we're just gonna say this is their terminal margin, and we're gonna assume it's not gonna go down. They have had no downward trends in margin over there. I mean, some cyclical, like pretty non-subnets, like there's a secular uptrend here. So I think the safer thing would be to assume it's going to go up versus going down. Now I'm just going to sandbag a little bit and assume that it's going to just stay. It's going to hit their 300 basis point improvement, and it's just going to stick there. So okay, and now we got earnings. So the 300 million in earnings in 1 year. 1 billion in earnings. So this is actually super conservative, because, well, not necessarily. They said they're going to hit 1 billion in discounted free cash flow in 3 years. So maybe hitting 1 billion in net in profit in 5 years isn't too crazy. So yeah, okay. So price, that's the price per share, or no. Yeah, I think my market cap divided by earnings. Oh, this is the PE ratio. Okay, so I mean that's if the PE ratio stayed the same. Current PE earnings multiple. Let's see for stock. Let's get the current PE ratio on this. 32. So it's actually gone down. So this is an even better deal than it used to be. It's the forward PE. Just check. I don't think we're gonna get that. Let me pull up Webull real quick. I don't think that matters. Just making sure I'm not gonna show anything I regret showing to you guys, just for my own sake. PE trailing 12 months. We should have a forward PE on this as well. Interesting. Webull is not showing, at least that I can see, a forward PE. I think it's usually pretty, like, let me, earnings multiple in 1 year. Let's see. Let's look at some of Shift4 competitors. Shift4 competitors: Square, WorldPay, Elevon, Stripe. Let's look at some of their earning multiples. Square stock. So Square isn't profitable, so does not have a PE ratio. Okay, very interesting. Stripe. Let's see. Stripe. It's not even publicly traded. Okay, so this is kind of difficult to get a... I mean, okay, if we're assuming they're growing at a 30% revenue for the next 5 years, they should at least trade at their revenue growth rate. So we'll drop them down to 30. And then the S&P average SPE ratio, PE, it's currently 24 but I think historically it's around 24. So let's just put in a terminal PE ratio of 24. And that's definitely a bit conservative for a company that's continuing to grow at like 30%. Okay, I think this might be everything we need in order to have them plotted out on this chart now. Okay, 4. Perfect. Excellent. All right, so now that we have that, let us look at this. So this is the point of doing this, guys. So you learn a bunch about this company, you watch the earnings call, you get their guidance, you build a certain amount of conviction. I am super confident in Shift4's ability to execute. I think my projections might be even a little bit conservative for Shift4 over the next 20 years, but I don't have a super high degree of confidence past the 5-year mark, so I did go quite conservative with those projections. The way to read this chart is the ticker symbol is across the bottom. We haven't finished this for all of these companies. Some of them are not coming up because they're not profitable. And this is based off of a PE ratio, so obviously a company can't get calculated if they don't have any earnings. So you see Lemonade, even though we have all of Lemonade's projections modeled out, they're not going to get an ROI multiple in 1 year. And again, I really don't like investing for the 1 or 5 year, because it's super hard to predict short-term multiples. And again, this is not financial advice. This is just, some dude on the internet's financial modeling, and you can see a lot of it's just guesswork. So guesswork, hopefully rooted in some amount of knowledge and conviction in the management, in the business model, etc. So, all right, we got 4 on here now. So it looks like it's pretty fairly valued over the 1 year. Some of that 1 year growth is already priced in. But what we want to look at, ROI in 5 years. So based on our projection, it could 3x in the next 5 years. So that's pretty good. I mean, that's going to way outperform the S&P 500. The S&P 500, I think at 8% compounding, doubles about every 7 years. So getting a 3x in 5 years, you're going to well outperform the S&P 500. So this is the 10-year. So this is pretty good. This is pretty close to where we think Tesla is going to be in 10 years as well. So very, very interesting. And then this is the 20-year. So 21x. So that's excellent. I think investing in Shift4 probably is a really good idea. Again, not financial advice, but this is kind of the thesis of this stock deep dive process. So we have now put a numerical value on the company based off of our personal understanding and conviction, which, so I was talking about this yesterday at the beginning of the stream, reading the goal. You could watch the earnings calls. You could be, significantly convinced that Shift4 is going to perform well over the next 10, 20 years. But it's really hard to compare that to other investment opportunities. So I'm very risk on. So I don't want to invest in anything other than like my number 1, 2, and 3 ideas. So my portfolio is actually split among the top 3 here. So I own a great amount of Lemonade. I own a second most amount of Hims. Actually, at this moment, I own a little bit more Tesla than Hims just because of the recent Hims pullback that we saw the other day. But my plan is to keep it based like how my positions are weighted based off of which stock has the highest ROI in 20 years. So I think every dollar, based off of our projections for Lemonade, every dollar you put into Lemonade is going to be like a 25x, Hims a 56x, and a Tesla a 30x. If you want to learn more about these companies, we did a deep dive, me and Jake together, on the YouTube channel. And that's the recent 1.5-hour video. I definitely recommend going and watching that. So, but the Shift4 looks like an excellent company. But I would not readjust my portfolio because I only invest in my top 3 choices, which are these guys right here. But it is pretty close to Tesla. If you saw Tesla continue to run and perhaps Shift4 pull back, you could definitely see a situation where Shift4's 20-year return on investment would surpass Tesla's, and then at that point you could see me starting a position in Shift4. So yeah, this is why this kind of information is super good. And because we calculate that multiple based off of let me find it, I think it's this way actually, of the current market cap. Google Sheets is really nice. It has live updates, maybe 20 minutes delayed max, of market caps. So because the market cap's constantly updated, these ROI multiples are based off of today's stock price, which is really nice. So once you build out the model once, it continues to update based off of current market fluctuations, so you can constantly know what stocks you're tracking have the best return on investment. So over the 20 years, because again, I'm a long-term investor. I hope you guys enjoyed this live stream, kind of getting an insight into how we do stock deep dives. As you can see, this is day 1 of the daily stock deep dive. So this is a new series that I'm going to be doing. So we just finished Shift4's deep dive. Tomorrow we're going to go to pick a new stock. As you can see, we have a bunch of stocks I haven't deep dived yet that don't have any kind of forecasting out past the 1 year. And the 1 year, a lot of these are just based on analyst expectations. So we want to model out all of these companies ourselves to kind of fill out this spreadsheet to get a good idea of what our best ideas are. So I hope you guys continue to join. If you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and throw them in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. But otherwise, this is company number 1 down. Something like 40 something more to go. So if you guys missed the beginning of the live stream, a lot of it is literally just listening to earnings calls, to investor days, nothing too exciting, something you could totally do on your own. But hopefully the value I bring is like me making comments every once in a while, and then ultimately putting all of that knowledge into this spreadsheet. So I think we could definitely make the stock deep dive process available sooner than this spreadsheet. I don't know if there's any desire to get this document outlays exactly what I did in order to get this bar chart that you see here, in terms of like what kind of calculations you're doing, and how to do those calculations, how to get the knowledge to even make those kind of guesses yourself. Again, a lot of this is speculative, but it's speculation based off of knowledge of the management, how well they execute, how they've executed in the past, all that kind of stuff. So, excuse me. I'm not seeing any questions, so for the 5 of you guys that are here, I really appreciate you guys joining in. I will be back on tomorrow. We will pick a new stock to deep dive. I'm doing these in the morning, so I know it's early if you're here in the States. Maybe if you're over in Europe, it's not so early. But yeah, we got a lot more companies to get into. We've already done HIMS. We've done Lemonade. I really need to go back over. We've done Tesla. Go back over MU and SMCI, I think. Go a little bit deeper into those ones. But yeah, AMD needs to be done. NVIDIA needs to be done. Oscar, which is a recent lot of media over the last couple of weeks from retail investors. Enphase is super interesting right now, especially with the solar tax credits that are being ended in the new beautiful bill, or maybe not. I don't know. I think that's one's going back and forth a bit. I'm really interested in doing BioStim. I might do this one next. If there's one you guys really want me to deep dive, I could definitely do that as well. Elf is a really interesting business. I mean, we got so many interesting companies here to do, and so many more to really deep dive. So this series will probably go for quite a while. So, all right. Thanks for joining me. If you guys missed any part of the streams, these are going to be live on the YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and check them out. So, yeah, make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and I'll be back here tomorrow.